Chapter 1528. Do you have any objections? Tianyang's tone was very calm, and his words were not very imposing. It was as if he was a boy next door who was casually asking. However, with this casual sentence, Yi Zichen was stunned. No one dared to make a sound. Then I'll take it that you have no objections. Tianyang smiled warmly and then landed on the ground. Although the three supreme talents were injured, they did not dare to stand up even though they had the strength to do so. You're not bad. When he passed by Wu Zhou, Tianyang nodded and smiled. With the 100 battles, godly body, and such a high status, it was rare for him to be able to maintain such a sincere fighting spirit. Haha, thank you. Let's fight again when we're free. Wu Zhou laughed heartily, not caring about his previous defeat. For a battle maniac like Wu Zhou, losing was not important. He only wanted the process of the battle. Although it was said that this time, the four of them besieged him, and he was the first to be defeated, the 5 prefectures did not care at all. He was already very excited to be able to fight with such a strong opponent like Tianyang. Anytime, Tianyang did not dislike Wu Zhou, who had the 100 battles godly body and was also a martial maniac. He smiled and said. Then he passed by Wu Zhou and arrived in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was slightly different from what Tianyang had imagined. This vast sky exquisite pagoda was different from the other pagoda treasures that he had seen before. For example, its height. It was only a few dozen meters tall. It was not comparable to the pagoda that was tens of thousands of meters tall. Even in Tianyang's Vientiane Sky Market, the Heavenly Essence Pagoda that was given to Primordial Transformation Realm cultivators was more than 100 meters tall. However, Tianyang could still feel waves of vast power from the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was not much different from the Cloud Fire Path seeking token. It was the vast power that belonged to the vast sky emperor. This is the vast sky exquisite pagoda that is related to the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain, the semi-finished product of a pinnacle divine weapon. Tianyang said. Hearing this, Tian Ming's eyes widened. Although Sir Yang Tian is very powerful, you should not underestimate the power of the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda. I've been to the vast sky temple more than 10 times, and I've seen the vast sky exquisite pagoda's power a few times. There was once a demigod who was more powerful than Lin Fenghua, the fighting 10 parties, and Jiang Haoshuan. He hid in the spatial treasure of an ordinary demigod emperor and tried to snatch the vast sky exquisite pagoda the moment he arrived. However, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda only activated once, and that demigod was instantly killed. In an instant, his body turned into ashes. Not even his divine soul was left. Tian Ming said solemnly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He just smiled lightly. Of course I know. What a joke. A treasure left behind by the Heaven's Expanse monarch, even if it was a half-finished product, would not be weak. A mere demigod wanted to go against the Emperor's power. What else could he do other than die? However, the moment he thought of this, all sorts of doubts surfaced in his mind. The vast sky, Holy Spirit, didn't know what treasure the Heaven's Expanse monarch had left behind in the Cloudfire territory. However, according to the memories that he had devoured, he had an impression that this treasure was extremely important. Obviously, it wasn't something that a half-finished product of a peak gray divine weapon could compare to. However, there was only one treasure. Where did the other things come from? Then, it's good that Sir Yang Tian knows. Judging from Tianyang's tone, it didn't seem like he didn't take it to heart, nor did he seem to have taken it seriously. Tian Ming had no choice but to add the last sentence. After all, if Tianyang died, he wouldn't be able to escape the Great Sun Sect's revenge. All right. After persuading him, Tian Ming looked at an ordinary black stone tablet in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda's door. This vast sky exquisite pagoda can't be snatched by force. You have to go through the exquisite tablet in front of the vast sky exquisite pagoda's door before you are qualified to fight for the vast sky exquisite pagoda? Exquisite tablet. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Then, he looked at the black stone tablet. The black stone tablet was the exact size of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. It was just slightly more than a meter tall. It was about the same height as Tianyang. This is the exquisite tablet. It's really small and exquisite. Tianyang walked closer and said, "Everyone who fights for the vast sky exquisite pagoda has to go through the exquisite tablets test. Only when they reach a certain standard, the vast sky exquisite pagoda will give them a corresponding test to choose the most suitable person to become the master of the vast sky exquisite pagoda." Tian Ming explained, "The test method is to punch the Linglong monument. This exquisite tablet, I don't know what material it is made of. No matter what kind of attack, it will recover continuously. However, there was once a peerless genius in the Great Sun sect who stepped into the demigod realm at the age of 250. When he punched the exquisite tablet, he left a fist mark that was half a foot deep." Tian Ming said in shock. It was as if he had seen the peerless genius of the Great Sun sect with his own eyes. He had almost broken the exquisite tablet. Hearing that, Tianyang was also slightly shocked. This Linglong steel was only a foot thick. With a punch that was more than half a foot deep, it was as if he had punched through the entire Linglong monument. That peerless genius was the sect leader of the Great Sun sect 2 generations ago. He has now left the cloudy fire territory to travel the entire divine world. Tian Ming explained. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly. The Great Sun sect was indeed the overlord of the cloudy fire territory. In the biggest secret realm of the cloudy fire territory, there were traces of the Great Sun sect everywhere. "Then I'll give it a try too." Tianyang smiled. The peak half-holy emperor cultivation that he had just raised using the heaven-devouring secret skill exploded. Seeing that, Lin Fenghua suddenly snorted. "Although your strength is not bad, the exquisite tablet is looking at the cultivation of the true origin. His cultivation is only at the heaven-grade, great sage level. With some unknown secret skill, he stepped into the peak half-holy emperor level. No matter how you think about it, it's impossible for him to leave a mark on the exquisite tablet." Lin Fenghua said coldly. Hearing that, the fighting 10 parties, Jiang Haoshuan and the rest nodded slightly. It was obvious that they had also attacked the exquisite tablet just now. However, looking at the exquisite tablet now, it was as clean as new. It was obvious that there was nothing there. Tianyang ignored Lin Fenghua's mockery and secretly activated the 9-tempered dragon body. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. 9-tempered dragon body, body of the Dragon Emperor. King Kong body tempering, sacred technique, level 3. Immortal divine body, indestructible body. The 3 body tempering sacred techniques were superimposed on Tianyang's body at the same time. Following that, Tianyang punched out. Boom! Before he even touched the Linglong monument, the entire space suddenly emitted a loud noise. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly realized that his immortal bloodline moved slightly. A bloodline force sprang forward at the speed of lightning and landed on the Linglong boulder before the punch could land. In the next moment, boom, the entire exquisite tablet was completely shattered. Before Tianyang and the rest could react, a ray of light from the exquisite tablet merged into the bloodline power. Then, it merged into Tianyang's body. Tianyang looked at the wind from his punch that landed in the air. Chapter 1529. Boom. This loud sound rang not only from the shattered exquisite monument, but also in the hearts of the fighting 10 parties, Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan. The 3 of them who were mocking him earlier were now in a daze as they stared at the debris on the ground in front of them. Something was wrong. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Even the previous sect leader of the Great Sun sect, who was so dazzling that he defeated the prodigies of the Cloud Fire territory and the surrounding territories, could not break the exquisite monument. How could a great saint at the peak of the heavenly grade do that? Tian Ming, who was next to him, was also confused. Then it turned into shock. He was only a half-saint emperor, so he could not see the sudden attack of the immortal bloodline hidden under Tianyang's mighty fist. He could only see that Tianyang punched and the exquisite monument exploded. It overturned everyone's understanding. Similarly, Tianyang was also in a state of confusion. If Tianyang had destroyed the exquisite monument with one punch, perhaps he would not be so confused. However, the undying bloodline had launched a surprise attack and destroyed the exquisite steel, causing his serious punch to miss. What was this? Tianyang also felt that the immortal bloodline had stolen a strange power from it and merged it into his body. However, time was limited. Tianyang did not have time to sense what it was. I broke it, and then what? Tianyang turned around and scratched his head. What should he do? Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, and the fighting 10 parties listened and wanted to beat someone up. The exquisite monument had been destroyed. Such an unheard of thing had happened. How would they know what to do? It was already bad enough that they did not capture Tianyang to study his structure. After those people punched, the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda automatically released a spatial power and brought those who passed the test into the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda. Take the test in the vast heaven exquisite pagoda, and then decide what you get based on the results of the test. However, the main body is still here. The Great Sun sect's previous sect master, who was the best in the past, had only obtained a rank 9 spirit fire from it. Tian Ming said. Tianyang shrugged when he heard that. He released his space-time origin energy to carefully sense the changes in the surrounding space. Unfortunately, there was no change in space. The vast heaven exquisite pagoda was as dead as it did not react at all. Tianyang, you destroyed the Linglong monument, so you might have destroyed its control. Therefore, the vast heaven's exquisite pagoda is now wide open. Let's go in now. Just then, the voice of the heaven's expanse, Saint Spirit, rang out. Tianyang was stunned for a moment before his gaze sharpened. Could it be that the heaven's expanse, Saint Spirit, had discovered something while he was studying the vast sky divine mountain? The vast sky, godly mountain, was the place where the vast expanse monarch's power had been left behind. Here, the vast expanse Saint Spirit was the master of all. Therefore, Tianyang immediately flew into the vast heaven exquisite pagoda's door in a flash. No one can enter through the door. The door of the vast heaven exquisite pagoda is permanently sealed. Don't think that you can control it just because you destroyed the Linglong monument. Seeing that, Jiang Haoshuan could not help but shout out. However, Tianyang raised his hand and opened up a space door and walked in. Jiang Haoshuan was left standing where he was. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he could only swallow his words. Countless curses were running through his mind. At this moment, Tianyang had also walked through the space door and entered the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. However, Tianyang did not feel any resistance at all. It was as if Jiang Haoshuan's solemn shout about not being able to pass through the door was just a fart. Moreover, there's no test here. When Tianyang walked in, he didn't sense any powerful force setting up a test. The first level of the vast heaven exquisite pagoda was an empty hall. The door can't be passed through, which means that I can't enter the first level. Could it be that the test only begins on the second level? Tianyang thought for a while, then flew to the second level in a flash. However, the second level was no different from the first level. It was still empty, and the hall looked the same. The only difference was that it was smaller than the first level. It was as if there was no powerful space array in the vast heaven exquisite pagoda to expand the space. The third level only begins. Tianyang raised his eyebrows, then activated his body movement technique and immediately arrived at the third level. However, there was still no difference. It was the same for the fourth and fifth levels. There were only 5 levels in the entire vast heaven exquisite pagoda. The aura of the divine weapon is still there, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. It feels like someone else forcefully put the aura of the divine weapon into the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. Moreover, there isn't any test. If the test is triggered by the exquisite monument, it should at least be the treasures that those people obtain from here. Tianyang frowned. The vast heaven exquisite pagoda was completely different from what he had imagined. Even if he had destroyed the exquisite monument, which had never happened in the history of a Yun Huadao competition. It shouldn't have happened. After all, according to what Tian Ming, Lin Finghua, and Zhang Haoshuan had described, the exquisite monument was only a method to determine the strength of the people who would enter the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. It shouldn't have much to do with the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. So that's the case. Seeing this, the vast expanse Holy Spirit muttered to himself, then came back to his senses and said to Tianyang, "If that's the case, then let the vast heaven exquisite pagoda recognize you as its master." Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Recognize me as its master? What kind of secret does the vast heaven exquisite pagoda have? How can it recognize me as its master just like that? However, Tianyang also understood that the vast expanse Holy Spirit must have known something as well. He nodded and waved his right hand. A drop of blood flew out from the tip of his right hand. The Array Dao origin was activated and turned into an extremely mysterious blood rune. The entire vast heaven exquisite pagoda started to tremble slightly. In the next moment, Tianyang's eyes focused. Freeze! Immediately after, the blood rune suddenly entered the vast heaven exquisite pagoda. Instantly, Tianyang established a connection with the vast heaven exquisite pagoda without any hindrance. With just a thought, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda would move according to his thoughts. In other words, master recognition, success. It's a success just like that? Tianyang was in disbelief. So simple? He thought that some demigod existence would appear to stop him. Just like that, the semi-finished product of the pinnacle divine weapon fell into Tianyang's hands without any hindrance. Were all the people from before useless? There's movement on the first level. At this moment, Tianyang also felt that something was amiss. His eyes flashed, and he came to the first level. A space door opened and exploded with an endless suction force. At this moment, the vast expanse Holy Spirit also spoke. Chapter 1530. What? Upon hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed. This space door was actually connected to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal of the vast sky, Divine Mountain. The 9th level of Heavenly Seal that the various sects of the Cloudfire territory could not break through even when they joined forces. How could it appear before him so easily? That's right, the vast expanse Holy Spirit said, materializing beside Tianyang. Those who attacked the Linglong tablet and entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda to take the test and came out with the treasures did not enter the vast sky exquisite pagoda at all. This vast sky exquisite pagoda is indeed a semi-finished product of a peak-grade divine weapon. However, since it is a semi-finished product, how could it release such a strong divine weapon aura? How could the vast expanse emperor put treasures in it? The vast expanse Holy Spirit said seriously, so those people probably thought that they had entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda, but in reality, they went to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal. Tianyang subconsciously took it. Then, his expression changed abruptly. If that was the case, then everything made sense. Previously, the Great Sun sect had joined forces with many other powerful sects to break into the vast sky Divine Mountain in an attempt to obtain the treasures in the deepest part of the vast sky Divine Mountain. However, in the end, they stopped at the 8th level of Heavenly Seal, unable to break through the last level of Heavenly Seal. Therefore, no one knew what the 9th level of vast sky Divine Mountain was like. It was not surprising that those who had entered the vast sky exquisite pagoda through the Linglong tablet would think that the 9th level of Heavenly Seal of the vast sky Divine Mountain was the vast sky exquisite pagoda. However, why would a space door to the 9th level of Heavenly Seal appear out of nowhere in a semi-finished vast sky exquisite pagoda? Tianyang asked doubtfully. Hearing that, the vast expanse Holy Spirit said slowly, "What if someone is controlling it from behind?" Hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed. If that was the case, the vast sky Divine Mountain was not as simple as Tianyang had imagined. I still have too little information, so I'm not sure myself. Therefore, I can't say anything to prevent it from affecting your own judgment. However, There's one thing that we can be sure of. The Heavens Expanse Monarch's Legacy Seal will become the 9 heavenly restrictions that cover the entire vast sky, Divine Mountain. There is also the Heavens Expanse Holy Palace that appeared out of nowhere, but should not be here. There is definitely something wrong. The vast expanse, Saint Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded. I've just finished analyzing the first 3 levels of the 9 heavenly forbidden grounds. I've discovered that apart from the first level, there's basically nothing good. So let's go now. Tianyang smiled and looked at the spatial gate in front of him. With a flip of his wrist, the vast heaven exquisite pagoda shrunk to the size of a grain of sand and landed on Tianyang's body. As for the spatial gate, it was still there. Outside, seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened dumbfounded. The vast sky exquisite pagoda, which had never changed since the vast sky Divine Mountain appeared in the Cloudfire territory, had actually disappeared. Moreover, what was that spatial gate? Could it be? The Fighting 10 party's eyes narrowed as they stared at Tianyang. He has already gotten hold of the vast sky exquisite pagoda. Hearing that, Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua's expressions changed drastically. What? At this moment, Tianyang's voice was heard. The few of you, help me look after this half-holy king. If I come back and see that this half-holy king is missing a single strand of hair, or even dead, you can all imagine the consequences. Tianyang smiled, turned around, and stepped into the spatial gate. Outside, Tianming looked at Lin Fenghua and the others, who were also dumbfounded. Lin Fenghua and the others' faces were also twisted. Tianyang wanted them to protect a half-holy king ant. Moreover, he wanted them to take responsibility. Damn it! Jiang Haoshuan shouted in a low voice, but he still flew toward Tianming fearfully. He had no choice. If something happened to Tianming, judging from the terrifying power that Tianyang had displayed earlier, they would be finished. Therefore, even if they were unwilling, they could only agree to Tianyang's request. It was a request, not a request. Instantly, Tianming, an ordinary half-holy king from Luxiong City who did not have much talent in cultivation, accepted the protection of the 3 supreme talents from the Cloudfire territory in fear and trepidation. Among them, Jiang Haoshuan had wanted to kill him many times. However, he gave up under Jiang Xian's warning gaze. To Jiang Xian, she still wanted to interact with Tianyang more. How could she let Jiang Haoshuan offend Tianyang so easily? After Tianyang passed through the space door, he sensed that the surrounding environment had changed tremendously compared to the first and second levels of the vast sky Divine Mountain. Tianyang frowned, and a faint light flickered in his hand. It was the source of the sky-devouring secret skill that he had activated earlier. The heavenly sword had changed. Why is the heavenly sword reacting? Tianyang released his half-step to godly soul, but after a careful search, he still could not find anything. However, based on the heavenly sword's previous performance, Tianyang did not dare to let his guard down. After all, the heavenly sword had never failed to sense the demon chi. Only Tianyang did not detect it. The heavenly sword did not sense it wrongly. However, this is the peak of the vast sky Divine Mountain, the 9th level of the heavenly seal. It is also the place where the vast sky emperor's power is the most concentrated. How can there be demon chi? Tianyang raised his eyebrows, and there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Tianyang did not think that there would be such a simple reason for all the abnormalities. I did not expect the demon chi to have already infiltrated this place. The vast sky Saint Spirit's tone was unprecedentedly serious as he spoke slowly. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly, and in front of him, beams of bright light gathered. Following that, a tall, old man with an imposing aura appeared in front of Tianyang. Congratulations, you have finally broken the 9th level of the vast sky, Divine Mountain, and arrived here. The old man spoke slowly, and beams of powerful vast sky, Saint Spirit's power, surrounded his body. It was on a completely different level from Tianyang's and the vast sky Saint Spirit's power. It was the vast sky Saint Spirit's power that came from the vast sky emperor. My name is the Vast Sky Emperor, and I am the creator of this vast sky, divine mountain. The Vast Sky Emperor smiled and said, Since you have arrived here, it means that you have sufficient strength to pass my test. As you can see, the 9th level of the Vast Sky Divine Mountain has been invaded by beams of demon chi. With my current strength, it is not enough for me to remove all the demon chi. Therefore, please help me to remove the demon chi. If you can remove it to a certain extent, the strongest treasure of the Vast Sky Divine Mountain will belong to you. The Vast Sky Emperor said amiably. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and did not reply immediately. Instead, he called out to the Vast Sky Saint Spirit in his heart. Vast Sky Saint Spirit, check it. The Vast Sky Saint Spirit was extremely shocked, and he muttered to himself, How can this be? How can the Vast Sky Emperor be here? Chapter 15:31. This is how the Heaven Expanse Emperor looks like. Tianyang's pupils shrank when he heard that. He looked at the smiling Heaven Expanse Emperor in disbelief. He looked exactly like the Heaven Expanse Emperor. The Heaven Expanse Saint Spirit's memory would never be wrong. In other words, the figure in front of him really looked like the Heaven Expanse Emperor. However, only a fool would believe that. Even the Heaven Expanse Palace that the Heaven Expanse Emperor had spent his entire life to create was torn apart and scattered to the myriad worlds. How could the Heaven Expanse Emperor survive? Even if he did survive, he would not stay in the divine world's cloud fire territory, on a godforsaken vast sky, godly mountain. Challenger, you can attack now. Even if it's not completely cleared, I won't mistreat you. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang did not expose the Heaven's Expanse Emperor immediately. Instead, he played along. Then, how can I clear it? I've never seen demonic chi before. I'm afraid I won't be able to clear it out. Tianyang's expression changed immediately. He looked like he was shivering as he looked at the demonic chi around him that was becoming more and more obvious. He had heard that people in the divine world rarely saw demonic chi, and they were terrified when they saw it. How could Tianyang not use such a setting? The Heaven Expanse Emperor seemed to think that this reaction was normal. He nodded with a smile, and a ray of light appeared in his hand. Within it, there was an unusually vast and boundless power. This is the energy essence that I've gathered with all my might over the years. Because I'm only a spiritual body, I'm unable to use it. Therefore, I've been waiting for a challenger like you to come and clear the demonic chi for me. Once you absorb this energy essence, no matter what your cultivation base is, your cultivation base will be raised to the demigod realm in an instant. It's more than enough to deal with the demonic chi. The Heaven Expanse Emperor smiled. Tianyang's face froze when he heard that. How was he supposed to cooperate? Did he really think that he had never seen a spiritual body before? He was not sure if a spiritual body could fight. Moreover, the Heaven Expanse Emperor was at the Emperor realm. He was at the peak of the divine realm. Not to mention a spiritual body, even a drop of blood that flew out from Slash could have the battle prowess of a sage realm expert. Now that he had a spirit body, how could he not be able to deal with this bit of demonic chi? Tianyang forcibly suppressed the urge to open his mouth and expose this guy's bullsh *T. He pretended to be pleasantly surprised and in disbelief as he took the ball of energy essence. Tianyang's eyes flashed with surprise as soon as he took it. Although he did not know what was going on, the vast expanse energy really did belong to the vast expanse Emperor. If not for the fact that Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit had already swallowed another vast expanse Holy Spirit, causing its memory and judgment to be greatly improved, Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit would not have survived. Perhaps, without knowing what kind of person the Heaven's Expanse Emperor was, he might really be fooled by this person. You just need to refine it a little. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, you will have the power of a demigod. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor said kindly. Hearing that, Tianyang flipped his wrist and absorbed the Heaven's Expanse power into his body. In the next moment, the heavenly sword on the great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly withdrew. In an instant, it pierced through the vast expanse energy. As expected, under the cover of the powerful and vast expanse energy outside. At the core of the vast expanse energy was a ball of demonic chi. If he refined it rashly, he might really have the power of a demigod for a period of time. However, he would also be eroded by the demonic chi after his power was exhausted. Although he did not know why the people who came here before came out as if nothing had happened. However, Tianyong would not easily absorb the demonic chi into his body. Swallow. With a thought, Tianyong's heavenly sword erupted with an extremely strong, devouring power. After swallowing the demonic chi, the vast expanse energy was directly absorbed by Tianyong. In an instant, Tianyong's aura skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the barrier of a saint emperor. Streams of divine Tao law gathered around Tianyong's body. In the next moment, he stepped into the demigod realm. Not bad. It seems like my power is extremely compatible with yours. Seeing this, the vast expanse emperor revealed an extremely satisfied smile. Well then, challenger, let's begin. Hearing this, Tianyong nodded his head slightly. In his eyes, a strange light flashed. Before Tianyong stepped into the demigod realm, he would not have many chances to experience the power of a demigod. The godly realm can change the heavens and earth. Although the demigod realm has not stepped into the godly realm, it is close. Tianyong smiled and muttered to himself. In the next moment, the heavenly sword was attached to the Great Void Sword Embryo. On the Great Void Sword Embryo, there were streams of 9-colored Xinguang. In the next moment, a devouring power erupted. The surrounding demonic chi turned into a black stream of air and surged into Tianyong's body. As for the heavens expanse monarch, a slight distortion appeared on it at this moment. The devouring power of the needle towards the demonic chi was also used on the vast expanse emperor's body. What? Seeing this, the vast expanse emperor's face revealed a look of shock. As for Tianyong, he turned his gaze and looked at the vast expanse emperor. This is so strange. Why would the treasure passed down by my ancestors to deal with demonic chi be used on you, Emperor? Tianyong turned his head, the corners of his mouth curling into a faint smile. Hearing this, the vast expanse emperor's face revealed a look of panic for a moment. In the next second, he returned to normal. Perhaps the demigod power you just obtained is hard to control, so it accidentally affected you. The vast expanse emperor smiled. At this moment, Tianyong's eyes narrowed. In the next moment, the divine wilderness heaven spirit art was activated. The demigod realm's true yuan was released. The vast power was all integrated into Tianyong's vast expanse origin. Therefore, if Tianyong wanted to attack, naturally, the attack that contained the vast expanse origin was the strongest. 10,000 Mammoth Annihilation. Tianyong roared angrily and slashed out with his sword. This slash was not aimed at the demonic chi. Instead, it was aimed at the vast expanse emperor. What are you doing? The vast expanse emperor's face changed drastically. He roared angrily. What are you doing? However, Tianyong's sword did not slow down at all. Instead, it sped up and charged towards the vast expanse emperor. Damn it! The vast expanse emperor's face revealed a hint of viciousness. In the next moment, he threw out a punch. Boom! The sword light of the 10,000 Mammoths Annihilation was shattered by the punch. However, the outer shell of the heavens expanse monarch was shattered as well. What was revealed was the demonic chi that surrounded the demonic chi like a demonic god, a little girl. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, come out and explain. Tianyong was stunned. Then, he shouted angrily in his heart. The vast expanse, Holy Spirit immediately regained his senses. He looked at the little girl with white hair and red eyes, who was surrounded by demonic chi. This guy is not the mastermind. Chapter 1532. White hair, red eyes, floating in midair. Her face was as delicate and cute as the vast expanse Holy Spirit that Tianyong had seen in the Vientiane Sky Market. However, the demonic chi that surrounded her body made her cute look a little scary. This fellow is the vast expanse Holy Spirit from the vast expanse Holy Palace that did not have an artifact spirit. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said seriously. At this moment, she also noticed that the demonic chi around her was getting stronger. The demonic chi earlier was only released by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit to lure the challengers, to refine the vast expanse power that contained the demonic chi origin. The previous few were too weak. Even if they were temporary shells, they were useless. Only you are passable. The white-haired, red-eyed Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit smirked. Furthermore, those people are just too stupid. Let alone directly attacking the Heaven's Expanse Emperor like you did, they didn't even have the slightest bit of suspicion towards this sudden power. Hearing that, Tianyang was slightly shocked. It turned out that those people had really entered the 9th heavenly seal of the vast expanse Holy Mountain. Moreover, they had also seen the vast expanse emperor that the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had turned into. However, they were too weak. Hence, they were rejected by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit and were sent away with a random treasure. However, I still left a demonic chi seed in their bodies. If there is still no suitable person after 5,000 years, I don't mind using their bodies to get out. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked her lips and chuckled. In the next moment, a streak of blood light suddenly shot towards him. Tianyang instinctively tilted his head and dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. A few strands of hair flew in the air and were easily cut off by the bloodlight. Streaks of demonic chi even spread up the few strands of hair that were cut off, trying to invade Tianyang's brain. However, Tianyang released the devouring power of the sky cloud sword in time and swallowed the demonic chi. Your reaction speed is not bad. I'm getting more and more satisfied with you. Seeing that, the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit chuckled and her body flashed. Her petite body carried with it the demonic chi that was like a wild wind as she charged towards him. This guy must have used some unknown method to come to the vast firmament's sacred mountain. At this moment, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's voice rang out. Then, through the connection between the Heaven's Expanse Temple and the Heaven's Expanse Emperor, I directly entered the depths of the seal and the treasure that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor left behind. Merely, the seal not only requires the boundless power, but it also requires humans. Therefore, this vast expanse sacred spirit can only enter, but not leave. It can only leave through possession. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit said hurriedly, once it succeeds, it will have the right to obtain the Heaven's Expanse Temple and the Heaven's Expanse Monarch's treasures. Therefore, we must guard against soul attacks. Devil's soul devour. At that moment, the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit let out a furious roar, and a powerful divine soul ripple burst forth. Streams of demonic chi, like thousands of ghosts from the underworld, crashed into Tianyang's soul sea in an instant. Within Tianyang's soul sea, the tiny figure constructed from divine Tao laws suddenly opened its eyes and erupted with the strength of a powerful half-step divine soul to resist the millions of nether ghosts. Half-step divine soul? Not bad, not bad. You're much stronger than everyone before. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked its lips, and a ray of light flashed in its blood-red eyes. Its body flashed. It appeared in front of Tianyang. Heaven's Expanse Emperor Killing Fist. The demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit attacked decisively. Although its body was small, the strength of this punch was not any weaker than Tianyang's swordsmanship. After all, this was the fragment of the Heaven's Expanse Temple that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had poured his heart and soul into refining. Boom! The punch landed on the body of the Great Void Sword Embryo. The power of this punch was unusually strong. Even if Lin Fenghua of the 5 states, Jiang Haoshuan of the Fighting 10 parties, who had attacked Tianyang together, they would only be killed instantly. Perhaps even Tianyang, who had used the heaven-devouring secret skill to raise his cultivation to the peak of the half-step Holy Emperor level, might not be able to withstand it. However, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had given Tianyang the gift of a demigod. The power of a demigod. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's blood-red eyes narrowed, and a look of understanding flashed in its eyes. So that's how it is. From the very beginning, you realized that there was something wrong with the vast expanse power that I gave you. Furthermore, you used your ancestral secret skill to devour my demonic chi in advance. Although the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had been invaded by the demonic chi, its intellect was not reduced by much. Furthermore, there must be someone of my kind beside you. That's why you could condense the vast expanse origin and use it to perfectly use the demigod power that I gave you. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit licked its lips, and a murderous look flashed in its eyes. Why just regain my consciousness? I was already on the vast expanse Holy Mountain. I've never seen the other fragments of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. However, my instincts told me that if I devoured the other fragments of the vast expanse Holy Spirit, my combat power would definitely skyrocket. You brat, you really gave me a big gift. After the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit finished speaking, its body suddenly disappeared. The demonic chi stirred up gusts of wild wind, and the white-haired, red-eyed figure kept flashing in and out of it. Demons suppressing heaven and earth. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared, and a terrifying suppressive force pressed down on Tianyang. Seeing that, Tianyang smiled. Then this is a big gift. Whether you can take it or not is still a question. After that, streaks of mysterious and powerful destructive force exploded from Tianyang's body. It came from Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, the combination of suppression and killing. Today I shall name it the ancient suppressing sword. Tianyang smiled and slashed out with his sword. Two incomparably powerful forces collided together. Seeing that, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit gritted its teeth. An array of light flashed in its eyes, and its white hair flew. So what if you have the vast expanse origin and can use this demigod power like it's your own arm? I've waited for so long in the vast expanse Holy Mountain. I won't lose to someone as weak as you. The vast expanse Holy Spirit roared, and the demonic chi gathered in its hands, turning into a huge long spear. The long spear was dozens of meters long, and it didn't match the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body that was only 34 meters tall. However, once it held the huge spear, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's aura skyrocketed. Do you know why there's nothing in the vast expanse Holy Palace? Even something as important as the vast expanse divine order has no power? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit smirked. Because they have turned into this spear, its aura skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Chapter 1533. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had no way of using the vast expanse Emperor's power. Hence, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's power was useless to her and could only be used as bait to lure other challengers into the abyss. However, the vast expanse Holy Spirit could not damage the vast expanse temple at all. Even a drop of water or a drop of power could only be used and could not be damaged. Hence, although Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit had the cultivation of a half-holy emperor, its combat power was basically zero. As for the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it was because it had completely absorbed and refined the vast expanse temple. In terms of power, it was far more powerful than Tianyang's vast expanse Holy Spirit. Peak demigod, how's this move of mine compared to the one on your body that has been silent all this while? A hint of provocation flashed in its blood-red eyes as it said. The long spear in its hand also shot out streaks of black demonic lightning. It looked extremely terrifying. The vast expanse temple is the foundation of the vast expanse Holy Spirit. Using the vast expanse temple as the price to become stronger will only make you lose more than you gain. The vast expanse Holy Spirit finally materialized and said coldly as it looked at the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit. What a joke. Of course I know this. The demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed coldly, and the huge spear in its hand disappeared instantly. In the next moment, it appeared in front of Tianyang. The one who is bound by the so-called original body is the stupidest one. Boom! The huge spear suddenly exploded, and countless demonic lightning bolts shot towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression was calm, and the great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly slashed out. Ancient suppression sword. Although Tianyang had just created this move, it already had the power of an ordinary 10,000 mammoth annihilation. As the sword slashed out, the killing power exploded crazily. It collided with the demonic lightning bolts. At this moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's lips curled into a cold smile. In the next moment, its body suddenly disappeared. The first one to die will not be your good body. Instead, it's this fellow with a foul mouth of his. Her white hair fluttered in the wind. Although she was petite, her fist was filled with boundless killing intent as she fiercely punched out. At this moment, the berserk vast expanse Saint Spirit was like a raging tide as it slammed viciously against the vast expanse Saint Spirit. You want to fight with me? The heavens expanse Saint Spirit's face froze for a moment before he snorted coldly. Behind him, a huge palace appeared. After that, a similarly small and delicate fist collided violently with the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's fist. Boom! However, what surprised the demonized heavens expanse Saint Spirit was that his punch did not destroy the heavens expanse Saint Spirit as easily as crushing dry weeds. On the other hand, he had almost been devoured by the power of the heavens expanse temple. You've already devoured an entire heavens expanse temple? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's eyes revealed a look of astonishment. Then, it turned into a cold sneer. No wonder you could devour me instead. However, that's all you've got. The heavens expanse temple can at most make you invincible, but you're dreaming if you want to defeat me. After that, the demonic chi spear appeared in her hands once again. If I can't deal with you, then I'll deal with this guy first. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit smiled faintly. Demonic chi exploded and blasted violently towards Tianyang. Die! At that moment, Tianyang's figure disappeared from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's sight. After that, a strong force of freezing time was applied on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Space-time origin. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had just managed to shout out this sentence when he was frozen in time by the frozen space-time. Space-time instant. Tianyang stepped on the heavens expanse 9 changes. In a flash, he appeared behind the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Without mercy, he slashed down with his sword. Although the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit looked extremely similar to the heavens expanse Holy Spirit. However, since he was an enemy, Tianyang would not show him any mercy. 10,000 mammoth annihilation. The terrifying sword that contained the 7 origins, which seemed to be able to shatter the 9th heavenly seal, slashed down violently. The frozen space-time did not last for long. Now it had disappeared. However, the sword light had already landed squarely on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body. Damn it! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body was slammed into the ground by the sword light, creating a deep crater in the ground. However, there was no blood. The light on his body flickered, and he was weakened significantly. Obviously, even if he was a weapon spirit, he was not invincible. Crawling out from the deep crater, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's face was filled with unwillingness. Break! The demonic chi danced wildly as he threw out his spear, an extremely terrifying attack, which directly shattered a part of the space, went straight towards Tianyang's sword light. The demigod peak demonic chi exploded at that moment. In the next moment, it covered Tianyang's sword light. Then it suppressed it. It was a terrifying suppression from all directions, without any blind spots. Tianyang's demigod power came from external sources. Although it had been integrated into the vast expanse Holy Spirit's origins, it would be exhausted eventually. In terms of thickness, it could not be compared to the demigod peak, demonic chi of the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Therefore, in this head-on battle, Tianyang was at a disadvantage almost instantly. However, Tianyang's eyes shone brightly. Two balls of black flames that were similar in appearance, but completely different in nature, surged out. Undying divine fire, true flames of destruction. Two black flames, like a river, swept towards the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's spear from both sides. At the same time, Tianyang activated the vast expanse 9 changes and rushed out. In a flash, he appeared in front of the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Heavenly Sword. Tianyang would not give the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit any time to react. With a low roar, the chaotic chi and martial soul's power exploded at the same time, turning into an extremely powerful sword light that shot towards the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Vast expanse 9 changes. Do you think I don't have it? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared. Demonic chi swept out from his hands and enveloped the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Then his body collided with Tianyang's sword. Boom, boom, boom. Demonic chi and true origin clashed, causing ripples that spanned tens of thousands of feet. Even the ninth heaven seal that had stopped countless people started to tremble. The battle between the two almost shattered the entire peak of the vast expanse Holy Mountain. At the side, although the vast expanse Holy Spirit wanted to attack, he could only stand where he was, even with the vast expanse Holy Palace's main body helping him. The power of a half-holy emperor was still not enough in the divine realm. You only reached the demigod realm with my power, and you want to fight me? The demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed out loud. In the next moment, divine Tao laws gathered in his hands. Spatial law, imprisonment. Sorry, I have divine Tao laws too. Tianyang smiled lightly. Half-step to godly spirit exploded. Directly, it suppressed the divine Tao laws that the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit released. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he pressed his palm against the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit's forehead. The heavenly sword shone brightly. Countless demonic chi currents flowed into Tianyang's body. Chapter 1534. Devour by Force. Tianyang's move was extremely domineering. After all, the heavenly sword's devouring was only done after he had won the battle or gained the upper hand in the battle, so that the heavenly sword could evolve. Now, the battle between Tianyang and the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was still uncertain, but Tianyang had already started devouring by force. This was an extremely risky move because he could be resisted at any time and be devoured by his martial soul. However, the facts prove that, along with the risk, there was a huge reward. When divine Tao law clashed against divine Tao law, Tianyang's attack came first, and the impact was negligible. As for the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it did not expect Tianyang, who was not even a saint emperor, to possess divine Tao law. It froze for a moment, and Tianyang grasped the opportunity perfectly. The heavenly sword started devouring. In just a moment, Tianyang had devoured a huge amount of demonic chi from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body. Most of it became the nourishment for the heavenly sword, while a small portion was used to push Tianyang's cultivation up. Even the vast expanse Holy Spirit's power, which had an absolute barrier to Tianyang, was devoured by the demonic chi. A part of it was integrated into Tianyang's vast expanse origin. Get lost! At this moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had finally recovered. With a roar, he unleashed streams of demonic chi. Streams of ferocious black chi seemed to have materialized and blasted towards Tianyang. Tianyang knew when to stop. He immediately retreated and used all his strength to refine the streams of demonic chi that he had just devoured. It was completely different from the heaven-devouring demon god's soul fragments in the Xiantian Great World. The heaven-devouring demon god might have been powerful enough to destroy the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. However, it was also in its original state. Only a soul fragment was left, and its demonic chi had almost dissipated. Even so, the heavenly sword was still filled with energy. Now, the quantity and quality of the demonic chi from the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was much stronger than the demigod's soul fragment. Now it was devouring. The heavenly sword was on the verge of a breakthrough. Not bad, not bad. Tianyang's expression changed as he looked at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Just a small portion of it was already so powerful. In that case, if he swallowed them all, wouldn't it mean that the heavenly sword could step into the divine realm? Instantly, Tianyang's gaze became extremely fervent. How dare you do such a thing to me? Die! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was disgusted by Tianyang's stare. Gritting his teeth, he gripped the spear in his hand tightly and charged out with a roar. However, before he could even take a few steps, the long spear that was tens of meters long suddenly disintegrated. By the time the vast expanse Saint Spirit reacted to it, it had already disintegrated into countless pieces, and there were only tens of meters left. You, what are you doing? Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in disbelief. It took her 1,000 years to refine this demonic chi spear, which was tens of meters long. How long had it been since the battle with the Tianyang? Soon, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit realized that something was amiss. The demonic chi on her body was much weaker than before. The demonic chi of a peak demigod was now swallowed by Tianyang to the point that she could not even maintain her demigod state. What did you do? It was still all right that the long spear was broken. After all, it could be refined again. As long as she could defeat Tianyang, she could use Tianyang's body to leave vast expanse Holy Mountain. There were treasures that were even more powerful than this demonic chi spear. However, the demonic chi had disappeared. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had no way to replenish it anymore. Die! The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit collapsed. With a roar, he charged forward again with the long spear in his hand. 8 desolation current-breaking spear. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared angrily, and the demigod demonic chi was released. A sharp and powerful spear light shot out and went straight for Tianyang. However, this time, Tianyang was much easier to deal with compared to before. Chaotic chi was infused. The divine wilderness heaven spirit art was activated, and the ancient sword was slashed out. The spear light was shattered by Tianyang. What? Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's pupils shrank. Her petite face was filled with disbelief. Even if a portion of the demonic chi had been devoured, it should not have been weakened to this extent. In the next moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit sensed a possibility. Her expression changed drastically, and she closed her eyes to sense carefully. Immediately after, her pretty face became incomparably ugly. My demonic chi origin. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's expression crumbled instantly. She raised her hand and looked at the demonic chi that seemed to have weakened significantly. The speed at which it was gathering had slowed down immensely. How could Tianyang let go of this opportunity? He attacked instantly. The vast expanse, 9 changes exploded. In an instant, it suffered from extremely strong reaction force and accelerated to an extremely terrifying speed. Even the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, who only had the demigod power left, could not react in time. Tianyang placed his palm on the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's head again. Streams of devouring force burst out. Boom, 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 boom. The demonic chi storm that was swirling around them paused for a moment, and then became even more violent. The demonized, vast expanse, Holy Spirit's eyes widened. Then, she roared furiously and swallowed all the demonic chi around her in her body. How dare you? There was even a moment when the sky cloud sword's devouring power could not catch up with the speed at which the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was absorbing the demonic chi around her. However, as if it had seen the hope of evolving, the sky cloud sword trembled slightly, and the Tsang Emperor sword fragment hidden deep within it suddenly shone brightly. The devouring power surged once again. Instantly, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's power fell from demigod to peak Holy Emperor. In a short while, it fell from peak Holy Emperor to half Holy Emperor. Previously, when Tianyang had devoured its demonic chi origin for the first time, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit could not even react in time. This caused it to be at a disadvantage in a direct confrontation with Tianyang. Now, it was being devoured by Tianyang without hesitation. Its power fell faster than a rocket. In just a few seconds, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit could not resist at all. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, go. When the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's cultivation fell back to heavenly grade great saint, Tianyang shouted. This was the second vast expanse Holy Palace fragment. However, just as the vast expanse Holy Spirit was about to make a move, his expression changed. No, the demonic chi on this fellow is still too thick. I can't devour it. Haha, I've said it before. My power source is demonic chi. As long as there's a trace of power left, even if I let you devour it, you won't be able to devour it. Seeing this, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang frowned and swallowed directly. He devoured the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit until it was a spiritual grade great saint, and then threw it into the Vientiane sky market. Wah! Chapter 1535. After throwing the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit into the Vientiane sky market, Tianyang went straight to the depths of the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky, Divine Mountain. Although the vast sky Divine Mountain was so huge, the ninth heavenly seal should not be small. However, to Tianyang's surprise, the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky Divine Mountain was so small that even Tianyang was surprised. He did not even need to use the vast expanse 9 transformations. He only needed to walk around casually, and in a few minutes he arrived at the border of the ninth heavenly seal. It was as if what he saw in the first and second heavenly seals was not the ninth heavenly seal at all. Could it be that the vast sky Divine Mountain does not have the ninth heavenly seal? Is that why the patriarchs could not break the ninth heavenly seal and enter this place? According to what the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit said, the only people who could enter the ninth heavenly seal were those who passed the Linglong tablet and thought that they had entered the vast sky Linglong pagoda. But in reality, they had entered the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky Divine Mountain. That made sense. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had accumulated power for 1,000 years, but in the end, it was only a peak demigod. Although the Cloudfire realm was not famous in the divine world, it was still one of the strongest realms in the divine world. It might not be as powerful as the vast expanse emperor, but it was definitely not weak. If the ninth heavenly seal was created by the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, it would be impossible to break it. Therefore, the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky Divine Mountain was probably not in the same space as the vast sky Divine Mountain. Those patriarchs tried their best to break through the air, but they could not do anything. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, can you sense the location of the vast expanse Emperor's treasure? He released his primordial spirit power, but it did not work. Other than the 100 meters around him that he could clearly sense, the entire area was filled with strong and terrifying vast expanse power. Even if Tianyang wanted to find it, he cannot find it. It is right in the middle of this place. Vast expanse Holy Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and nodded. In a flash, he came to the center of the ninth heavenly seal of the vast sky, divine mountain. The next moment, the vast expanse origin was released. A sliver of the heavens expanse Emperor's expanse power, which he had obtained from the Cloud Fire Path token, flew out from Tianyang's hand. It poured into the earth. Suddenly, boom, a series of blasts took place, as if the entire vast firmament sacred mountain was about to be torn apart. Following it, wisps of powerful god force burst out of the ground. Following it, a terrifying beam of light soared into the sky. Tianyang's face suddenly turned cold. He took a few steps back and looked at the beam of light that was about to pierce through Haoxiao Divine Mountain and pierce through the sky. This was the Emperor's power that the Heaven's Expanse monarch had left behind in this place. Similarly, it was also the reason why Tianyang had rushed over from the Enigma Fire Dynasty. "This is the real Heaven's Expanse Emperor," Tianyang exclaimed as he sensed the aura within the light pillar. Previously, the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's disguise was extremely realistic. If he did not have the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit with him and knew about the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's current state, he might have fallen for the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's trick. However, now that he had sensed the real Emperor's power, Tianyang felt that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor that the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit had disguised as was riddled with holes. There were flaws everywhere. Previously, the Sky Tyrant Dragon God told you that the godly realm is also known as the Emperor realm. That's just a saying now. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's solemn voice suddenly rang out. She revealed her body and looked at the huge beam of light in front of her. Her expression was faintly discernible. In the era before the Heaven's Expanse Shrine was torn apart, Emperor is the king of the godly realm. It's a title that only people can use. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor is the pinnacle of the godly realm. The Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit said. After coming into contact with the real power of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor, she seemed to have recovered a lot of her memories. However, she was still a distance away from truly reminiscing about it. After all, the real weapon spirit of the Heaven's Expanse Shrine had already disappeared when the Heaven's Expanse Shrine was torn apart and the fragments flew out into the universe. Now, although she was a part of the weapon spirit of the Heaven's Expanse Shrine, she was also a new body. Therefore, even in the face of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's power, it was difficult for her emotions to fluctuate too much. Is that so? As expected, the title of Emperor can't be used casually. Tianyang did not notice the change in the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit's emotions. He smiled faintly and looked at the beam of light that was gradually calming down. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor did not leave behind any divine consciousness or voice transmission for his descendants. Perhaps the Heaven's Expanse Emperor at that time was far from knowing that he would be facing such a huge calamity. Thinking of this, Tianyang's heart suddenly moved. Then he smiled in relief. The speed at which the beam of light was dissipating was getting faster and faster, revealing the treasure that was wrapped in it. A small sword. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. However, he was not surprised. He took a step forward. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the small sword. His lips curled up as he smiled. "Senior Heaven's Expanse Emperor, since I've owed you so much, then I'll help you bear your karma. The Heaven's Expanse Shrine and any enemies that might exist, I'll fulfill them one by one." Tianyang's voice was not loud, but it spread out leisurely. As for the small sword that was still separated from Tianyang, after hearing this, it also calmed down. It turned into a ray of light and merged into Tianyang's body. Tianyang's expression did not change. He smiled faintly and retracted his hand. In his eyes, there were streaks of dark yellow clouds floating and flowing. The demigod Expanse energy that he had swallowed and refined from the demonized Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit dissipated at this moment. However, there were many that had completely merged into Tianyang's Expanse origin. Seeing this, the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit smiled faintly and looked at Tianyang, who was standing in the light. Around him, the 7 origins gathered. Legacy Sword Body, Tianyang muttered to himself as he sensed the enormous torrent of information that surged into his mind. The treasure that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had left behind here was not a weapon or armor. It was a body-tempering technique. When the stars are dust, I can leave dust behind. Legacy Sword Body. Comprehending the information that came from the Legacy Sword Body, Tianyang also kept the Great Void Sword embryo in his hand. The heavenly sword appeared and floated in front of Tianyang. Streaks of undying divine fire also burned. In the Sea of Soul, the tiny person that was formed by the divine Tao law also appeared above Tianyang's head. Chaos, birth and death, expanse, sword principle, space-time, formation principle, pill principle. Now, after the undying divine fire appeared, the tiny primordial spirit followed closely behind. A pure color ball of true yuan also followed behind. Undying, primordial spirit, true yuan. The heavenly sword released streaks of 9-colored xinguang, stirring up the 9 heavens and earth. Just nice, the 10 origins. Chapter 1536. 10 origins, Tao, proving Holy Emperor. This was Tianyang's ambition, relying on the myriad forms Tao and the origin of chaos. When Tianyang stepped into the Saint Realm, he was already in the 9 sacred paths. Why couldn't he enter the Holy Emperor realm with 10 origins? The myriad forms Tao was all-encompassing, and there were countless people who had entered the Holy Realm with more than one sacred path. Although the Heavenly Sun was a little too powerful in this regard, it was still within the normal range. However, it was different with 10 origins. The Holy Emperor realm, whether in the Xintian Great World or the Divine World, was recognized as one origin and one Holy Emperor. Even the mysterious Xintian Great World and Void Mountain, which knew many secrets of the Divine World, was the same. The only difference was the strength of the origin. Saint Emperor Lai Yan's origin of fire was relatively ordinary, and his understanding of the origin of fire was not very deep. Therefore, when facing the Dragon Emperor's darkness origin, even though the Dragon Emperor was much younger than Saint Emperor Lai Yan, Saint Emperor Lai Yan was very wary of the Dragon Emperor. However, there was a limit to how strong an origin was. With more origins, it was not 1 plus many equals many. This limit would increase exponentially. Even one's own strength would increase exponentially. Tianyang was a peak heavenly great saint. Even if he had the immortal bloodline, the divine desolate sky spiritual art, the great void sword embryo, the sky cloud sword, and other powerful treasures, he should not have been able to kill a half-holy emperor so easily. After the Holy Emperor raised his cultivation to the peak of the half-holy emperor realm, he could even defeat the 4 great prodigies of the cloud fire territory, who were even stronger than a true demigod. However, he had done it, because each of his 7 origins could give him at least 1 holy emperor's power. 7 added together was not 1 multiplied by 7, but the limit of countless 7s. After becoming a holy emperor with 10 origins, Tianyang might be able to do it. He might even be able to fight the immortal prince's divine power clone, who had swept across the entire Xintian Great World and defeated the Dragon Emperor. When did this guy condense the 10 great essences? Seeing this, the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit revealed a look of astonishment. She had always known that Tianyang had been suppressing his cultivation so that it would be easier for him to step into the Saint Emperor realm. He also knew that Tianyang had done all kinds of things to become stronger. However, he had never imagined that it was for the sake of condensing the 10 great essences. 9 is the limit, but what would happen if this limit was broken? Tianyang chuckled as his eyes sparkled. The 10 essences emitted dazzling light at the same time. The 9-color xinguang of the heavenly sword had also reached its peak. Skycloud sword evolve. The sage emperor had broken through. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth swirled around Tianyang's body like a hurricane. The power of the vast expanse emperor that had dissipated earlier was also summoned by Tianyang's vast expanse origin, merging into Tianyang's vast expanse origin. Boundless heaven and earth spiritual chi surged into Tianyang's body, and the 10 great origin sources emitted different kinds of light. Among the 10 great origins, the alchemy Tao and array Tao origins emitted the weakest light. After all, they were researched by Tianyang himself in the 3 years before his death. Although they had also achieved the origins, they belonged to the ordinary level of the origins, flickering with ordinary silver light. As for the essence spirit and quintessential essence, the 2 great origins, although their radiance was not too strong and was only slightly brighter than the origins of Pill Tao and Formation Tao. However, the strange and powerful divine Tao laws in the depths of the tiny soul and the dense energy within the true Yuan quintessence were telling him that these 2 quintessences were extraordinary. After all, one was a half-step divine soul that had condensed the divine Tao laws. They were only a single step away from leaping over the level of source and directly becoming an existence of laws. One was a solid foundation of true essence that Tianyang had tempered countless times, accumulated for countless years, strengthened, suppressed, strengthened, and suppressed again. In truth, there weren't many people who cultivated true essence. It was different from a saint who had to cultivate true essence to the divine Tao. In the saint's sovereign realm, what was most important was complete control over the power of the world. The strength of true essence was not insignificant, but it was also not very important. In the God realm, there were even people whose true essence lingered on the edge of the origin. Above the essence spirit and true essence that seemed weak, but was actually incomparably powerful were the life and death origins, the space-time origins, and the undying origins. Unlike the alchemy Tao origins and array Tao origins, which were pure balls of light, these 3 origins each had their own form. The space-time origin was a ball of light that twisted and intertwined with silver light. It had no fixed form or even fixed form, symbolizing the ever-changing space-time. The life and death origin was formed from black and white. It was a vortex that constantly spun, the cycle of life and death never ending. The undying origin was even simpler. It was a ball of undying divine fire that could fill the heavens. These 3 great essences were the cornerstones of the heavenly sun realm's combat power, built on the 2 great foundations of the Yuan spirit and true Yuan. Above them was the sword Tao origin and the vast expanse origin. Originally, the vast expanse origin should also be at the 3rd level. However, the power of the demigod vast expanse emperor lord that it had devoured was simply too powerful, directly raising the vast expanse origin to an extremely terrifying level. Even the light of the sword Tao origin that Tianyang had cultivated from his previous life to this life was suppressed by the light of the vast expanse origin. However, no matter how much of the vast expanse emperor lord's power the vast expanse origin devoured, it would at most be at the 2nd level, on par with the sword Tao origin. Among all the origins, there was only one that was the most dazzling and the most powerful. The beginning of all Taos, the origin of all techniques, the chaos origin. The 10 origins gathered and circled around Tianyang's body. Tianyang stood in the center of the 10 origins. His eyes seemed to contain the sea of stars, deep and mysterious. Streaks of 9-color Xinguang had already covered the entire 9th heaven, forbidden ground of vast sky, sacred mountain. The heavenly sword appeared in Tianyang's hand. He stood with the sword in his hand, like a young supreme. Beside him, the vast expanse Holy Spirit stared blankly at Tianyang, who was surrounded by the 10 origins and stood with the sword in his hand, like a peerless emperor. For some reason, he saw the image of a god on Tianyang's body. How could a heavenly great saint break through to the holy emperor realm produce divine power? The vast expanse Holy Spirit smiled, then watched Tianyang break through in front of him. Tianyang's expression was solemn. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth turned into mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, crazily surging into Tianyang's body. His true Yuan origin emitted a supreme light, and his aura and strength continued to skyrocket. In the next moment, it exploded to an extremely terrifying level. Holy Emperor Realm, break through. Tianyang roared angrily. pointing his sword to the sky and roaring at the sky. Streaks of powerful aura exploded from Tianyang's body. In the next moment, thunderclouds gathered in the sky. Holy Emperor Realm, Breakthrough, Chapter 1537. The thick and dark thunderclouds looked like they were going to destroy the world. Above vast sky, Godly Mountain, they quickly gathered. Although the speed of Lei Yun's attack was extremely fast, due to its enormous size, it looked like it was slowly expanding from afar. This Saint Emperor Tribulation was far from being formed, but the destructive aura it released had already seeped out and permeated the mountains, rivers, water, and air. The entire vast sky, Godly Mountain, was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. What is this? In the third level of vast sky, Godly Mountain, the fighting 10 parties gritted his teeth and clenched the purple lightning divine spear in his hand to prevent himself from falling to his knees. The pressure from the thunderclouds that appeared in the sky was almost crushing him to pieces. They had long left the Haoxiao exquisite pagoda. After searching the vast sky, Godly Palace again, they quickly went to the third level, afraid that Tianyang would come to settle the score with them after his strength increased greatly after coming out of the pagoda. But now, instead of Tianyang, they were met with layers of terrifying thunderclouds. Is this a divine tribulation? But there are no divine Tao laws. Lin Fenghua faced the peak of vast sky, Godly Mountain, and knelt on one knee, staring at the thunderclouds in the sky. Beads of cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. In his impression, this kind of thing could no longer be considered a cloud. It was a mountain. A terrifying mountain born in the sky that was about to erupt with destructive power. Without divine Tao laws, it's definitely not a divine tribulation. But what else in vast sky, Godly Mountain can cause such a huge change? Lin Fenghua looked at the thick thunderclouds and muttered to himself. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. Could it be the 9th level of vast sky, Godly Mountain? In the next moment, Lin Fenghua was about to stand up. The chaotic Xingguang that he used to resist Tianyang's half-condensed spirit also shot out from the surface of his body. Boom! At this moment, there was an explosion. The chaotic Xingguang that appeared on Lin Fenghua's body instantly collapsed. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to his knees, unable to hold on any longer. Even so, Lin Fenghua continued to open his mouth and spit out mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale, and his aura was weak. His hands were trembling nonstop. What is that thing? He didn't even see a single bolt of lightning. Jiang Haoshuan and Wu Zhou were about the same as Lin Fenghua and fighting 10 parties. They barely managed to hold on and not fall to their knees. However, the other cultivators in Vast Sky Divine Mountain were not as powerful as the 4 great talents of Cloud Fire territory. They could only bear the heavy pressure and kneel down at the peak of Vast Sky Divine Mountain. His heart was pained. Vast Firmament Divine Mountain's 9th heavenly seal had appeared, and they could only kneel before it. In Vast Sky Divine Mountain, among the thousands of cultivators, only a young girl could stand. Jiang Haoshuan knelt on one knee beside her. However, Jiang Xian had no intention of helping him up. She looked at the peak of Vast Sky Divine Mountain from afar. Deity tribulation? Without divine Tao precepts, what could it be? Jiang Xian muttered to herself. She didn't know why, but she had an instinctive feeling. This matter might have something to do with the unparalleled and mysterious Yang Tian. Tianyang knew nothing about the situation outside Vast Sky Divine Mountain. At this moment, the 10 great origins, led by the Chaos Origin, shone with the brightest light. The Holy Emperor Tribulation naturally didn't have divine Tao precepts. However, even Tianyang didn't know that when he condensed the Chaos Origin and stepped into the Saint Realm, he had already experienced a weakened version of the Holy Emperor Tribulation. Now, this was the real Holy Emperor Tribulation. Its power was probably comparable to a deity tribulation. The vast expanse, Saint Spirit's expression was serious. He looked at the tribulation cloud in the sky and gritted his teeth. Waves of violent and powerful energy gathered in the center of the tribulation cloud. The next moment, boom! From nothingness to violence, it took less than a second. In less than a second, a terrifying lightning bolt that could swallow the entire vast sky, divine mountain descended. Tianyang snorted coldly. He activated the divine wilderness heavenly spirit art, and his entire body's true yuan exploded. Holding the heavenly sword in his hand, the nine-color Xingguang seemed to form a nine-colored battle armor and attached to Tianyang's body. The sword slashed out, breaking the heavens. That huge lightning bolt instantly exploded. However, when Tianyang raised his head, he saw that the lightning bolts had formed an extremely terrifying thunderstorm. Boom, boom, boom. Among them, there wasn't any special lightning like the destruction divine lightning or the blood demon lightning. There was only one type, the lightning that was formed by the power of heaven and earth. However, the amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi that it contained was far more than all the lightning bolts that he had seen before combined. Tianyang slashed out with his sword. The sword light swept out and destroyed a large portion of the thunderstorm. However, after that, new lightning bolts were formed and turned into a thunderstorm that blasted towards Tianyang. Not long after, although the sword light that Tianyang slashed out was still powerful, it couldn't suppress the thunderstorm that was getting stronger and stronger. It was swallowed by it. Boom, 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 boom. Countless lightning bolts flashed. Amidst the azure lightning, a figure with a long sword in his hand roared into the sky. Legacy sword body condense. The vast expanse Emperor's treasure that contained a body-tempering divine art, the legacy sword body, suddenly shone brightly in Tianyang's body. The legacy sword body wasn't the body-tempering divine art that the vast expanse Emperor cultivated. It was obtained by chance. However, in terms of strength, it wasn't any weaker than the other body-tempering divine arts in the divine world. For a sword cultivator like Tianyang, it couldn't be more suitable for him. The Sage Emperor's tribulation continued to attack. Tianyang's immortal divine fire was also forced out. After cultivating the fourth level of the immortal divine body, his immortal divine origin had also grown to an extremely powerful level. It made his immortal divine body much stronger. For a moment, the thunderstorm that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth couldn't do anything to Tianyang's physical body. Legacy sword body, first level, Star's sword body. Tianyang shouted in a low voice. The sword principle origin also shone brightly. For a moment, Tianyang seemed to become transparent. What formed him was the stars in the sky, and the sword formed by the stars. Using the body as the sword body. The sword principle origin also rushed into Tianyang's legacy sword body. Moreover, the power of the sword realm also merged into Tianyang's body. If he cultivated normally, perhaps Tianyang wouldn't be able to cultivate the first level of the legacy sword body even after a few months. However, cultivating under the Sage Emperor's tribulation, the Star Sword body was completed in less than 10 seconds. Entering the Saint realm from the 9 Saint paths is still within the scope of the heavenly way. After all, Wu Zun can indeed control many Saint paths. Tianyang's eyes were deep as he muttered to himself. But the 10 origins is completely against the heavenly way. Since I've already gone against the heavenly way, why don't I go even further? Tianyang smiled slightly and rushed into the sky. He went straight for the Sage Emperor's tribulation cloud. Chapter 1538. Usually, the essence of the lightning tribulation would be present during the great tribulation of a breakthrough. Although Tianyang had not tried much, he had obtained this information from the Tianshao Great World, the Xintian Great World, and the ancient records he had obtained from Princess Qingwan. Moreover, the stronger the lightning tribulation, the more essence of the lightning tribulation would be produced. Usually, the essence of the lightning tribulation would be the energy source of the lightning tribulation when erupted. After the lightning tribulation dissipated, it would automatically disappear and return to heaven and earth. However, there would always be some people who could do what ordinary people could not. When the lightning tribulation was raging, they would devour the essence of the lightning tribulation. The result would usually be angering heaven and earth. causing even more terrifying lightning to descend. They would not be able to withstand it and would die. However, there were also people who defied heaven and used the essence of the lightning tribulation to reach a higher level. Tianyong belonged to the latter. Since I defied heaven, I might as well go even further. Tianyong laughed maniacally. The heavenly expanse, 9 changes exploded, and an extreme speed appeared on his body. In an instant, the heavenly sun arrived in the middle of the tribulation clouds that covered the entire sky like a heavy mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The tribulation clouds, which were already extremely violent, seemed to have sensed that Tianyong, who had offended the heavens, had entered. The power of heaven and earth gathered rapidly and turned into streaks of lightning that shot towards Tianyong like a storm. That's it. Tianyong smiled and slashed out with the heavenly sword in his hand. The domineering and invincible sword light swept out, and the lightning rain was instantly shattered. At the same time, the tiny primordial spirit figures in the 10 great origins around Tianyong raised their heads, and their eyes shone with a brilliant light. In the next moment, Tianyong nodded slightly and locked onto a direction and rushed towards it rapidly. Boom! The tribulation clouds seemed to be completely enraged. They did not care about the mission of the sage Emperor Tribulation and directly mobilized all the power of heaven and earth to form the most terrifying thunderstorm. The thunderstorm swept across as if it was going to tear apart the space barrier between the 9th heavenly seal and the entire vast sky, Sacred Mountain. Previously, other than the 9th heavenly seal, the people on the vast sky, Sacred Mountain, could only see the terrifying tribulation clouds that were rapidly gathering towards the mountain peak. Now, the tribulation clouds were still there, but there was an additional thunderstorm. What? What is this? Jean Cherfong was thoroughly shocked. He almost loosened his grip on the purple thunder divine spear. As he looked up at the thunderstorm, the arrogance in his eyes finally vanished. Instead, it was replaced by endless fear. For the first time, he felt the powerlessness of this divine spear. Before the heavens, the heavens, the heavens, the heavens, the heavens, the heavens, the heavens was the heavens God. The heavens, tribulation heavens heavenly, was heavens heavens. God, the God was... The character of suppress condensed in his eyes. Not only did it give Jiang Haoshuan an incomparably powerful suppressive power, it also gave Jiang Haoshuan powerful eyesight. Therefore, compared to the fighting 10 parties, Lin Fenghua, Wu Zhou, and Jiang Haoshuan could see more. Amidst the layers of thunderstorm, Jiang Haoshuan saw a human figure. How can there be a human figure in the tribulation clouds summoned by the 9th heavenly seal? Jiang Haoshuan was shocked as he looked at the flying figure in disbelief. Even he could not see how fast the figure was. The suppressing ancient heavenly eyes were operating at full force. If not, Jiang Haoshuan would not be able to see the person in the thunderstorm. As for Jiang Xian, she closed her eyes. Waves of mysterious and strange perception spread out. She was not afraid of the raging heaven and earth's might and went deep into the thunderstorm. However, apart from the thunderstorm, Jiang Haoshuan could only sense endless sword light. What's in there? Jiang Haoshuan's face changed slightly as she muttered to herself. As for the other people of the vast sky, Sacred Mountain, they went from kneeling to prostrating on the ground. Whether it was Tianyong or the heaven's might, they could not help but kneel. Amidst the tribulation clouds, Tianyong's eyes were solemn as he looked at the approaching thunderstorm. Now he had gone deep into the tribulation clouds. He could not retreat even if he wanted to. However, the surrounding heaven and earth's might did not weaken at all after Tianyong's continuous slashing. This was completely different from the ordinary sage Emperor Tribulation. The Dragon Emperor's sage Emperor Tribulation could be easily eliminated when I just stepped into the heavenly Great Saint realm. The strongest sage Emperor Tribulation recorded in the history of the Xintian Great World, the sage Emperor Tribulation of Sword God Ling Tian, could be easily eliminated by people at the level of the fighting 10 parties and Jiang Haoshuan. My sage Emperor Tribulation Why do I feel like the 4 of the fighting 10 parties combined could only be eliminated in seconds? Tianyong held the heavenly sword and constantly released waves of attacks, shattering the surrounding thunderbolts. Even with the vastness of his chaos origin, he had used up too much energy. Most importantly, he had used up most of his energy because the thunderbolts only contained enough power to kill a mid-stage Sage Emperor. However, there were too many of them, which was why Tianyong had used up so much energy. Even so, these thunderbolts could not cause any substantial damage to Tianyong. Heavenly Sun frowned. With another move, he casually destroyed the lightning bolts. Why do I feel like the purpose of these thunderbolts is not to kill me, but to slow me down as if they are brewing something? Tianyong muttered to himself. At this moment, he was greatly alarmed. The sword principle origin flew out of Tianyong's body. With the chaos origin as the lead and the half-step godly soul origin as the main body, it exploded with a powerful attack. At this moment, an incomparably terrifying sword light also shot out from the depths of the thunderclouds. Boom! When the two attacks collided, the tribulation cloud, which had remained motionless all this time, began to tremble. Tianyong instantly retreated and landed on the ground with great difficulty. His eyes were full of seriousness. He felt like he had seen this before. At this moment, 3 more sword lights flew out from the depths of the tribulation clouds. Tianyong's expression changed. The heavenly sword in his hand flashed, and he slashed out. 10,000 mammoth annihilation. The 10 origins bloomed with brilliant light at the same time, and the sword slashed out with incomparably terrifying power. However, after cutting 2 of the sword lights, it had consumed all of its power. Tianyong tried his best to use the stellar sword body that he had just cultivated to block the remaining one. Even so, 2 long bloody wounds appeared on Tianyong's arms. After a few seconds, they were still bleeding. Ever since Tianyong cultivated the immortal blood, such a situation had never occurred. The direction of the tribulation lightning essence. Tianyong quickly recovered from the injuries on his arms. His eyes were extremely serious as he looked in that direction. And in that direction, a figure slowly walked out. Holding a long sword, his face was handsome, but there was no expression. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Tianyong. He slashed out with his sword. Tianyong did not have time to react and was sent flying several miles. However, by relying on the strength of his physical body, he was not injured. However, this person's strength also deeply shocked Tianyong. In the next moment, Tianyong recalled who this guy was. In the past, in the Tianshao Great World, he had devoured the Blood Sea for 3 years, broken Wu Zun's barrier, transcended the heavenly tribulation, and became Wu Zun, one of the immemorial 9 emperors. Chapter 1539. The Primordial Emperor. Tianyong's expression was grave to the extreme, and the hand holding the sky firmament sword trembled slightly. The Primordial Emperor did not exist in this world and had long passed away during the Primordial Age. However, their strength was remembered by the world and recorded in the world's origin. When a peerless genius broke through and passed the tribulation, they would be summoned by the world's origin to stop the genius from breaking through. Looking at the expressionless face in front of him, the sword in his hand was dull, and the simple white robe on his body did not change at all even under the strong wind. There was no aura coming from his body, but Tianyong could tell from the previous few swords. This was the strength of the Primordial Emperor. Tianyong did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had just broken through the first realm in the God Realm, and the God Realm gave him face by summoning a Primordial Emperor to stop him from breaking through to the Saint King Realm. Could it be that after breaking through to the Saint King Realm, he would have the power to fight against a God State expert? However, the Primordial Emperor did not give Tianyong much time. In a flash, he appeared in front of Tianyong and raised the sword in his hand. There was clearly no energy fluctuation, but an irresistible force still erupted from the long sword. A strong wind burst out. Tianyong did not dare to be careless. His eyes focused, and he slashed out with the sky firmament sword in his hand. Boom! The two swords collided, and the strong wind and sword light also intersected. A ferocious aura swept across the place, causing the inside of the tribulation cloud to turn upside down. The rolling thunder in the surroundings also quieted down at this moment. It was as if the thunder that symbolized the anger of heaven and earth did not dare to offend this primordial emperor. Seeing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. Looking at the primordial emperor who had retreated but only a few steps and whose expression did not change, Tianyang's face was a little ugly. Previously, Tianyang did not seem to have suffered any injuries, but a powerful sword energy had entered his body. It was also thanks to the star sword body that Tianyang had just cultivated. Otherwise, Tianyang would have vomited blood and retreated violently. Even so, Tianyang's perlicue was trembling slightly. Whoosh! A loud explosion sounded as the surrounding space exploded inch by inch. A terrifying sword strike that was like a blooming green lotus viciously slashed out. Pressure swept out, as if it had the power to suppress the heavens and earth. So what if he's an ancient emperor? Don't think that I'm a pushover. Tianyang roared and slashed out with the heavenly sword in his hand. Suppressing ancient sword, a sword light that was filled with the power of suppression and destruction slashed out violently. In the next moment, the stellar sword body was released. Stellar sword body, myriad star, sword world. Suddenly, a terrifying power of sword world attacked the great emperor's silhouette. In addition, Tianyang had the origin of time and space. In an instant, time and space were frozen. The three of them combined into one, erupting with one of Tianyang's strongest swords. Boom! As if the heavens and earth were about to be split apart, the extremely terrifying and dazzling sword light slashed heavily on the great emperor's shadow. The great emperor's shadow was also sent flying by the sword. Tianyang's eyes narrowed, and the boundless expanse origin exploded. His body disappeared from the spot as the heavenly sword in his hand expanded and turned into a giant sword that was 1,000 meters long. Before the great emperor's shadow could react, it was a terrifying sword strike. Boom! The sound that reverberated through the clouds almost tore one's eardrums apart. Below, the boundless expanse Holy Spirit was completely stunned when she saw Tianyang's actions. As the boundless expanse Holy Spirit, she had even devoured another boundless expanse temple that was stronger than her. Her knowledge was so vast that even some godly state experts could not compare to her. She had also heard of the strange phenomenon of the immemorial emperor. In the Tianshao Great World, the immemorial emperor had almost never appeared. Therefore, even though Tianyang was the supreme Tianji sword emperor of the Tianshao Great World in his previous life, he did not know what kind of existence the immemorial emperor was. However, the boundless expanse Holy Spirit was different. The godly world was an existence that was above many other worlds. Its cultivation environment and martial art civilization were the strongest in all the worlds. In the godly world, there were countless geniuses. Although the immemorial emperor was rare, it did not mean that there were none. However, in the boundless expanse Holy Spirit's memory, there were only a handful who could survive the immemorial emperor's attack and pass the heavenly tribulation successfully. Therefore, the immemorial emperor was also known as the killer of geniuses. Now, not only did Tianyang summon the immemorial emperor, but he also gained the upper hand in the battle with the immemorial emperor. Even though the boundless expanse Holy Spirit thought that she had a deeper understanding of Tianyang's strength, she did not expect Tianyang to be able to do this. 3 styles of indestructible, 5 swords of the heavenly honorable, second sword. After gaining the upper hand, Tianyang did not let his guard down. Instead, he channeled his true yuan and slashed out again. This time, the immortal origin and sword Tao origin worked together to unleash their might. The sword that was burning with dazzling immortal fire slashed down furiously. At this moment, the immemorial emperor, who was at a disadvantage after being blasted away by Tianyang's series of attacks, suddenly had a flash in his eyes. An exquisite and huge green lotus bloomed under his feet. Then, a terrifying sword shot up into the sky. Boom! 3 styles of indestructible, second sword of the 5 swords of the heavenly honorable, suddenly shattered. That sword also slammed heavily on Tianyang's body. Tianyang instantly spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. After all, this was not an ordinary expert. Instead, it was the shadow of an incomparably terrifying immemorial emperor. Through the previous exchange, Tianyang could tell that although the immemorial emperor's combat strength was incomparably strong, he was only at the peak of the immemorial emperor. However, his cultivation base was only at the peak of the Saint Emperor realm. Forget it. After all, this was the Saint Emperor tribulation. It was impossible for a demigod or even a god to appear. However, even so, it was extremely difficult for Tianyang to defeat the other party. The immemorial emperor, all of them were terrifying existences who had revealed their talents early on. When they were in Wu Zun's realm, the immemorial emperor might not have completely displayed their unparalleled talent. Although it was shocking enough for Tianyang to defeat 9 supremes, the difficulty of defeating him was not high enough to make one despair. However, the immemorial emperor realm, immemorial emperor. It was enough to make anyone who wanted to step into the Saint Emperor realm feel despair and tremble. When I was in Wu Zun's realm, I had already killed 9 immemorial emperors. I don't believe that there's only one left now. What can he do to this emperor? Tianyang shouted in a low voice, and the divine, desolate, heavenly spirit art erupted. Surging true yuan surged out, and at this moment, the great emperor's shadow flickered. Countless sword lights shot out from the green lotus under his feet. The sword lights flickered continuously, tearing the space apart, and actually caused a loud bang. The sound of space being torn apart, when combined together, actually had a strange rhythm. It was as if the sword lights were the hands, and space was the strings playing a piece. Chapter 1540. Green Lotus Sword Song. Countless petal-like sword lights flew out, tearing the space apart with loud noises. It was a long song that belonged to the sword. Heavenly Sword. Tianyang naturally could not let his guard down in the face of such a terrifying sword light. His expression was extremely serious as he roared angrily. The Sword of Firmament was currently the strongest sword move that Heavenly Sun was capable of unleashing. The primal chaos origin glowed and shot out countless primal chaos airflow that engulfed the heavenly sword. Under the enhancement of the primal chaos airflow, the sword light rapidly expanded. Not only did it increase in size, but also increased in power. The 100,000-mile sword light that killed Xianyuan Changsheng had reappeared in the divine world. Boom, boom, boom. Countless petal-like sword lights danced in the air and collided with Tianyang's sword light. However, the 100,000-mile sword light that had always been invincible was stopped in midair by the thin petals that seemed like they could be easily destroyed. This is a Saint Emperor. Seeing this, Tianyang could not help but narrow his eyes as he cursed angrily. Tianyang had killed many Saint Emperors in the Xiantian Great World and the Divine World. These Saint Emperors, including Jiang Haoshuan and the Fighting Ten Parties, were all easily killed by Tianyang. This Emperor Shadow was also in the Saint Emperor realm. Tianyang felt that it was similar to the Saint Emperor Shadow. It felt like the Undying Prince's divine power clone that had descended in the Xiantian Great World. However, the divine power clone was in the divine realm and was not considered weak among the divine realm. This Emperor Shadow was really only in the Saint Emperor realm. An existence that can be recorded by the world origin cannot be measured by common sense. Tianyang gritted his teeth and charged at the great Emperor's shadow in a flash. If he defended, he would only be defeated by the Emperor Shadow's strange and powerful attack sooner or later. Only by attacking would he have a chance of winning. The boundless origin source burst forth, and the advantage of devouring the demigod's boundless energy was fully displayed. The peak speed of the 8th change of the boundless 9 transformations was fully unleashed. If it weren't for the lack of time, he would have been able to reach the ninth transformation with the vast amount of energy he had devoured. He would have been able to push this movement technique that had surpassed the Saint Emperor realm to the God realm. Although Tianyang had yet to reach the ninth transformation, it was enough to push his speed to the limit. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of the Emperor's shadow. "Break!" Tianyang bellowed and slashed out with his sword. The sharp slash combined the 5 swords of the Heaven Highness and the 10,000 mammoth annihilation. At the same time, the myriad star sword world was unleashed. Thousands of sword, Tao, origin, source power suppressed the great Emperor's shadow. The 3 of them combined into one and exploded in an instant. At this moment, the Emperor's silhouette also moved. Beneath his feet, the huge green lotus instantly blossomed with Xinguang. As the green lotus spun, countless sword lights shot out from the green lotus. At the same time, the Emperor's silhouette slashed out with his sword. No, it wasn't just one slash. It was just that the speed was too fast, so the 3 slashes turned into a single movement. 3 green sword lights flew out and accurately hit the weakest point of Tianyang's attack. At the same time, they broke Tianyang's myriad star sword world. Although the myriad star sword world had evolved from Tianyang's original sword world, it had just been evolved by the stellar sword body. Tianyang still couldn't completely control the myriad star sword world. The 3 green sword lights, the 3 attacks combined into one, were instantly shattered. In the next moment, the Emperor's silhouette took a step forward, raised the sword in his hand, and stabbed. This stab was straightforward. It didn't take advantage of the time when Tianyang's 3 attacks were broken. It was just a simple stab, as if it was afraid that Tianyang wouldn't be able to dodge it. However, Tianyang seemed to be sucked in by something. He couldn't move at all. Tianyang's expression froze for a moment as he looked at the constantly spinning green lotus under the Emperor's silhouette. Origin world. Tianyang's pupils contracted as he exclaimed in disbelief. This green lotus wasn't some kind of ability of the Emperor's silhouette. Instead, it was the origin world of the Emperor's silhouette. It was equivalent to the sword world that Tianyang had easily broken. The origin world can actually be so powerful. Tianyang's heart trembled. He even seemed to have forgotten about the attack in front of him. The biggest difference between a holy emperor and a saint was that they had condensed the origin and completely mastered the power of heaven and earth. The most obvious characteristic of origin energy, as well as its greatest characteristic, was that it could condense an origin world. Tianyang's 10 origins could naturally condense 10 origin worlds. However, Tianyang used the sword world most often. Even so, the sword world, Tianyang couldn't fully utilize it. The origin is the complete control of the power of heaven and earth. The origin world is actually a world that belongs to one's own. I'm actually only using the origin world to assist me. Tianyang remained silent for a long time. At this moment, the attack had already arrived. Flames burned in Tianyang's eyes. In the next moment, an incomparably terrifying and powerful sword world erupted. Tianyang seemed to be standing in the middle of endless bright stars. At this moment, he was the ruler of these endless stars. "Kill!" Tianyang roared as rolling thunder erupted. Immediately after, an incomparably terrifying sword slashed down furiously. The green lotus-like sword energy collided with the sword energy that was formed from countless stars. Boom, 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 boom. Originally, it was absolutely impossible for Tianyang to block this sword attack. Now, it was directly blocked by the myriad star sword world. Moreover, Tianyang's myriad star sword world still had some power left to counterattack. Swoosh! Tianyang's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. The origin energy erupted. Everything covered by the myriad star sword world was under his control. The heavenly sword in his hand emitted a bright light as the sword slashed down. Heavenly sword. At this moment, the heavenly sword was no longer just a martial soul talent of the heavenly sword. More importantly, it was the convergence of Tianyang's comprehension of countless sword principles. On the incomparably huge sword light, There were not only traces of the nine-colored xinguang of the heavenly sword, but also the flickering of countless stars. Boom! The Great Emperor's projection also released the power of the realm of Green Lotus in time to block Tianyang's sword attack with all his strength. However, the realm of Green Lotus, which had always been successful and had an absolute suppressive force, no longer had that power now. It was easily shattered by Tianyang's sword attack. The Great Emperor's projection immediately flashed and escaped from the attack range of the heavenly sword. However, Tianyang's reaction was faster. He released the realm of space-time. The powerful space-time power directly sealed the Great Emperor's projection. At the same time, Tianyang's right hand hit the heavenly sword. It was directly transmitted to the front of the Great Emperor's projection. Boom! Just like that, the Great Emperor's projection was hit by the heavenly sword. You won't die so easily. Tianyang smiled. Before the radiance of the heavenly sword disappeared, he activated the heavenly expanse 9 changes and his figure swept out. The myriad star sword world and the realm of space-time disappeared and were replaced by the realm of chaos. One origin corresponded to one origin realm. Tianyang's 10 origins corresponded to 10 origin realms. No matter how strong the Great Emperor's projection was, it was only an origin king. Boom! 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 Countless attacks rained down on the Great Emperor's projection. At this moment, even the Great Emperor's projection couldn't hold on any longer. There was a loud boom. Tianyang could clearly sense the Great Emperor's projection under the realm of chaos. Chapter 1541. The phantom of the Great Emperor disappeared. Tianyang only heaved a sigh of relief when the primordial emperor had completely disappeared from his sight. The primordial emperor was indeed an emperor of the primordial age. Although he was only a saint emperor, he was still extremely terrifying. Back when he was a martial saint, he had encountered the 9 emperors of the ancient age. He had been able to kill all of them partly because of Tianyang himself. However, the origin of the heavenly firmament world was too weak. Furthermore, when he was a martial saint, he could not be too strong. These emperors of the primordial age had only matured after reaching the saint realm. Back then, the battle with the primordial 9 emperors allowed me to gain a series of benefits. The sage path that I comprehended during the battle allowed me to gain even after reaching the saint realm. Now that I have fought with this primordial emperor whose name I don't know, the origin realm has not been disgraced by me. Tianyang chuckled and said. Although it seemed that Tianyang had been the main attacker in the previous battle, it was still extremely dangerous. After all, the primordial emperor was an emperor of the primordial age. How could it be so easy to deal with him? Even in the end, Tianyang had comprehended the true use of the origin realm from the phantom of the Great Emperor and perfectly unleashed his 10 origins. However, it was not because he had defeated the primordial emperor. Instead, he had relied on the strength of his 10 origins to crush the phantom of the Great Emperor. However, Tianyang did not care. If he could surpass the primordial emperor after comprehending for a few minutes, how could he be qualified to be called an emperor of the primordial age if he had cultivated for decades or centuries? Wasn't the reason why he had cultivated so many origins to become stronger? Couldn't he kill one origin? 2, 3, 10 origins added together. Even if the primordial 9 emperors that he had encountered during his breakthrough to Wu Zun, they would all die. However, although this damned heavenly tribulation used all the lightning tribulation essence to condense the phantom of the Great Emperor, I can't throw away the rest. Tianyang chuckled and stretched out his hand. A powerful suction force erupted. Without the obstruction of the Great Emperor's shadow, Tianyang was able to obtain the thunder tribulation essence with ease. However, when it was sucked back, Tianyang noticed that there was something strange in his hand. Green Lotus. Is she related to the primordial emperor? Tianyang raised his eyebrows and looked at the fragment in his hand that was engraved with the pattern of the Green Lotus. He couldn't tell what kind of fragment it was. It didn't look like a sword or a token. However, since it's related to the primordial monarch, it must be something extraordinary. I'll keep it for now. Who knows, It might come in handy in the future. Tianyang smiled and swallowed the essence of the lightning tribulation into his body. The true flames of destruction and the immortal fire burned at the same time. Instantly, Tianyang's body was like a furnace, rapidly refining the essence of the lightning tribulation. As the great emperor's shadow dissipated, the huge tribulation cloud that shrouded the entire vast Shao, sacred mountain, and almost the entire cloudy fire territory also dissipated. Similarly, the geniuses of cloudy fire territory who knelt in fear under the power of heaven and earth also stood up and rushed toward the 9th level of heaven's seal of vast Shao, sacred mountain. That was the heaven's test triggered by the 9th level of heaven's seal of vast Shao, sacred mountain. The only thing that could trigger such a terrifying heaven's test was the legendary treasure in the 9th level of heaven's seal that even the ancestors of the various sects in cloudy fire territory couldn't break through. Now that the heaven's test had dissipated, the 9th level of heaven's seal was still there. Obviously, the treasure was still there too. Charge! Moreover, as the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was taken away by Tianyang, the other 8 levels of heaven's seal were no longer controlled and automatically opened. Countless geniuses rushed to the 9th level of heaven's seal, where Tianyang was in just a few minutes. Where's the treasure? Countless geniuses' eyes were red as they panted, searching for the treasure that might appear. After a short while, they saw Tianyang sitting in midair and devouring the essence of the thunder test with all his might. Yang Tian. Seeing this, someone recognized Tianyang, who had fought with Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan outside Vashao, Sacred Mountain. It was even said that he had defeated Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan, the 2 great geniuses in Vashao, Sacred Mountain. He was also known as the 5th great genius in cloudy fire territory. Suddenly, some people were afraid and didn't want to provoke Tianyang, who was a killing star. However, in front of the treasure, there would always be people who couldn't control their temper. Moreover, these people were usually the majority. So what if he's Yang Tian? If we join forces, even Lin Fenghua and the other great geniuses of the fighting 10 parties can't defeat us. How can Yang Tian block our attacks? Someone shouted. Hearing this, the eyes of the people present suddenly lit up. No matter how strong Tianyang was, he was only one person. At best, he was only slightly stronger than Lin Fenghua and the other great geniuses of the fighting 10 parties. There were thousands of people here who wanted to fight for the treasure. A mouthful of saliva from each of them could drown Tianyang. After we kill Yang Tian, the treasure will be lost. Then we'll rely on our own abilities. Someone shouted again. Immediately, more people were mobilized. If Tianyang was conscious, he would be able to tell that these 2 sentences were shouted by the same person. The fighting 10 parties. As the 2 extremely provocative words of the fighting 10 parties were shouted, the thousands of heaven great saints and holy emperors who had rushed in the 9th heaven seal of vast Shao, sacred mountain revealed streaks of red light. Then let's go. The fighting 10 parties roared again. Immediately, countless true origin condensed and turned into countless colorful attacks. At the same time, they shot toward Tianyang. On the side, Jiang Haoshuan stood motionless, looking unwillingly at Tianyang, who was about to be bombarded by countless attacks. Why don't you let me attack? This might be his only chance to kill Tianyang. If you attack, you'll also be killed. Jiang Xian looked indifferently at Jiang Haoshuan and then at Tianyang. Her beautiful face was full of seriousness. At the beginning, she could still vaguely sense Tianyang's strength. Now, the feeling that Tianyang gave her was that he was a bottomless black hole. With her strong physique, the number of times this kind of situation happened could be counted on one hand. One was facing her father, who was only a step away from becoming an imperial emperor. The other was the old ancestor that she would occasionally meet at the family ceremony. Tianyang was the third. With her confidence in her physique, Jiang Xian would not let Jiang Haoshuan die so easily. Jiang Haoshuan seemed to want to say something, but at this moment, Tianyang, facing thousands of attacks, slowly opened his eyes. Why are there so many bugs when I wake up? In the next moment, the 10 great origins appeared on Tianyang's body. Then he hid. What was left was a destructive light beam formed by the 10 layers of origin realms superimposed. The attacks released by thousands of geniuses at the same time were like ants in the face of this light beam. They collided with it and were instantly annihilated. And the light beam was also expanding rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it covered the entire ninth heaven seal of vast sky, divine mountain. Dozens of seconds later, the light beam disappeared. Tianyang casually patted his clothes and landed on the ground. At this moment, the thousands of geniuses who had attacked before were all gone. Not even ashes were left. So I don't want you to die. You are still useful. Chapter 1542. Thousands of geniuses had all disappeared. It was as if they had evaporated into thin air. Jiang Haoshuan looked at the 9th level of heaven restriction in front of him. It was as if no one had ever been there before. For the first time, even his teeth were trembling. Even when facing the master god of the Jiang clan, he had never been so terrified. Is this still a heaven-grade great sage? Jiang Haoshuan said in a trembling voice. Jiang Xian looked at Jiang Haoshuan strangely and said, "Can't you sense it? Yang Tian is now a saint emperor." Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan immediately opened his eyes wide. Saint emperor? When? Then, Jiang Haoshuan released his primordial spirit to sense. Finally, before Tianyang retracted all his aura, he sensed some aura. He had really stepped into the saint emperor level. It's only been a few days, and he went from a heaven-grade great sage to a half-saint emperor to a saint emperor? Has he fallen into the domain of a god who has become a god of the Tao of space-time? Jiang Haoshuan roared. Jiang Xian didn't say anything. She just looked at Jiang Haoshuan as if she was looking at an idiot. At this moment, Tianyang also noticed the commotion. Jiang Haoshuan, an acquaintance. Tianyang curled the corner of his mouth, revealing an extremely bright and warm smile. Jiang Haoshuan was about to reply when he remembered the thousands of geniuses who had evaporated into thin air. He couldn't utter a single word. Looking at Tianyang's bright smile, it looked like the smile of a devil. "Let's go." Jiang Haoshuan immediately wanted to run away. However, Jiang Xian rose into the air and looked at Tianyang with a smile as she floated forward. "Yang Tian, I'll call you that for now." Jiang Xian faintly smiled as she looked at Tianyang. Her innocent face was filled with a shrewd smile. "I wonder if you're interested in the Jiang clan?" "Trash power, not interested." Tianyang flatly refused. He still wanted to leave this damned place as soon as possible to cultivate the legacy sword physique that he had just obtained. He couldn't be bothered to get entangled with this fellow who seemed to be full of evil tricks. The Jiang clan of the Cloudfire territory is a rubbish force, but my Jiang clan is not. Being evaluated by Tianyang, Jiang Xian didn't seem to be annoyed or angry. Instead, she smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. What did he mean by the Jiang clan of the Cloudfire territory and her Jiang clan? However, Jiang Haoshuan's expression became a little unsightly when he heard this. However, he quickly returned to his original state. Tianyang's eyes flickered when he noticed this. Jiang Haoshuan's status seemed to be far inferior to Jiang Xian's. The Jiang clan of the Cloudfire territory is just a small branch of my Jiang clan. I heard that a powerful mystery land was opened in the Cloudfire territory. I happen to be traveling nearby, so I can take a look. If it were any other time, I wouldn't even bother to take a look. Jiang Xian smiled and said, "However, this place gave me a surprise. It's you. I'm interested in your strength. How about going back to the Jiang clan with me?" Jiang Xian smiled and said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said, "Go back to the Jiang clan with you?" "Yes, as a foreign minister. Although your strength isn't the best now, it's only a matter of time before you enter the divine realm with the huge resources of the Jiang clan." Jiang Xian smiled and said. Tianyang shook his head and said no. The Jiang clan not only has a huge amount of resources, but also has an emperor or even someone above the emperor realm. Isn't that enough? Tianyang was stunned when he heard this. Above the emperor realm? The strongest person he had seen so far was the Heaven Expanse Emperor, who was disguised by the demonized heaven expanse Holy Spirit. The real divine realm that he had seen was the immortal prince's divine power clone. Above the emperor realm, even if Tianyang had broken through to the holy emperor realm, he still had to look up to them. However, I'm still not interested. Tianyang smiled and declined Jiang Xian's invitation. He couldn't be bothered to go to the Jiang clan. Tianyang had experienced all kinds of family affairs in the lower domain. For Tianyang, being a lone ranger was more to his liking. Jiang Xian was stunned when she heard this. She had never heard of anyone who could refuse the temptation of being above the emperor realm. Although the realm of the gods was called the realm of the gods, not everyone could become a god. Tianyang's talent and strength were not weak, but there were many people who were stuck in the demigod realm and could not break through to the realm of the gods. So you're related to the Green Lotus Palace. No wonder you can refuse the Jiang clan. Jiang Xian glanced around and noticed a green fragment in Tianyang's hand. She smiled and said, "If that's the case, I'll give up for now. However, the Green Lotus Palace is not a force to be trifled with. My promise is still valid for 3 years. If you change your mind, come to the Eastern Cloud Territory to look for me." Jiang Xian smiled and said. Then, without waiting for Tianyang's reply, she rose into the air and flew out of the Vast Sky Divine Mountain. Vast Sky Divine Mountain was open for a few months, so they could leave at any time. At this moment, Tianyang had obtained all the treasures in the 9th layer of heaven of the Vast Sky Divine Mountain. Jiang Xian had not succeeded in recruiting Tianyang. There was no reason for Jiang Xian to continue staying here. Wait a minute. Seeing that Jiang Xian ignored him and left by herself, Jiang Haoshuan immediately became anxious. He glanced at Tianyang with jealousy and then hurriedly chased after Jiang Xian. Tianyang, on the other hand, shrugged helplessly. The Green Lotus Palace that Jiang Xian had mentioned was obviously related to the strange fragment left behind by the Great Emperor's phantom during the Saint Emperor Tribulation. However, before Tianyang could ask, Jiang Xian left on her own accord, which made Tianyang a little depressed. However, if the Jiang clan gave up so decisively, the Green Lotus Palace is obviously not a weak force. Tianyang glanced at the fragment in his hand and smiled. With a flip of his wrist, he put it into his space bag. Those who are close to the demigod level don't play dead. My move can kill all the small fries, but it can't kill you. Tianyang turned his head and spoke in a certain direction. His voice boomed out, following which numerous figures appeared on the ground. It was Lin Fenghua of the Fighting 10 Parties. Tianyang, you're heartless. How could you kill so many geniuses of the Cloud Fire Territory? You'll be punished one day. The forces behind them will never let you go. Lin Fenghua glared at Tianyang and shouted angrily. It was all thanks to his trump card, the chaotic divine light, that he was able to escape with his life just now. Lin Fenghua shuddered at the thought of thousands of heaven-grade great saints and above being turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. What kind of strength was that? Do you want to die too? Tianyang smiled casually. Lin Fenghua immediately shut up. Just you wait. Fighting 10 Parties snorted coldly, and his figure gradually disappeared. He had immediately left when the heavenly sun Tao had broken through. What was left here was just an afterimage. What about you? By the way, I don't want to see anyone else in Vast Heaven's Sacred Mountain. Tianming, you better not die. Tianyang said lightly. Lin Fenghua's face suddenly twisted. In the end, he could only bow his head and leave. The meaning of the last sentence was very clear. Tianming was related to Tianyang, so he could not die. The people related to the Xuanhua dynasty and Tianyang could not die either. Otherwise, they would be the ones to die now. Lin Fenghua was not an idiot. He knew what to do. All right, all irrelevant people have left. Tianyang smiled and landed on the ground. Chapter 1543. Sob, sob, sob. Why are you treating me like this? When Tianyang pulled the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit out of the Vientiane sky ruins, he saw the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit sitting on the ground, hugging his head and bawling. Firstly, I didn't kill anyone, and secondly, I didn't set anything on fire. Even if my motives weren't pure, I've done a good deed, allowing those people to enjoy the power of a demigod. The guy who jumped around the most in front of me earlier, I don't even know where he is now. Why are you treating me like this? The demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit sobbed. His long white hair, which seemed to have come alive earlier, was now hanging behind his head. His two huge blood-red eyes were still filled with tears. If not for the fact that his senses were not wrong, Tianyang would have suspected that he had found the wrong person. Wasn't this guy the kind of guy who would continue to clamor even if Tianyang threw him into the Vientiane Sky ruins and suppressed him 180 times? Why did it look like Tianyang had done something heartless to him? Master, this guy is so cute. Is he the vast expanse Holy Spirit's sister? At this moment, Ling Yuhan flew out of the Vientiane Sky ruins and grabbed the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's long hair, smiling. I was playing with him just now, and he was still very angry. I don't know why he's become like this now. Ling Yuhan smiled. Hearing that, Tianyang looked at the vast expanse Holy Spirit in confusion, wanting an explanation. Seeing that, the vast expanse Holy Spirit could only smile bitterly and say, "This guy is not good enough." After entering the Vientiane Sky ruins, he kept trying to make a move on my vast expanse Holy Palace. However, he happened to bump into Ling Yuhan, who was doing something in the vast expanse Holy Palace. When he saw a spiritual great saint, he thought that Ling Yuhan must be very weak, so he tried to kidnap Ling Yuhan. However, Ling Yuhan had broken through for so long, and her aura was concealed perfectly. The earthly great saint disguised himself as a spiritual great saint, and he happened to bump into the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, so he was dealt with. The vast expanse Holy Spirit shrugged and said, that was the reason why the demonized heavens expanse Holy Spirit had such a huge mental breakdown. Previously, he was still a peak demigod, standing at the 9th layer of the vast sky sacred mountain, an unstoppable expert. After being devoured by Tianyang, his cultivation base had dropped to the point where he could even defeat an earthly great saint. How could the demonized, vast expanse, Holy Spirit tolerate that? Therefore, the demonized, vast expanse, Holy Spirit naturally fought with Ling Yuhan again and again, trying to use this spirit-grade great saint to prove that he was not weak. However, in an environment where there was no demonic chi, the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit was getting weaker and weaker. Ling Yuhan, on the other hand, was completely unaffected. In the end, the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit that Ling Yuhan had initially had to fight hard to defeat had turned into such an autistic state. After hearing the heavens expanse Saint Spirit's explanation, Tianyang was speechless. He did not know what to say. No matter what, he was still a weapon spirit of the vast expanse Holy Palace. That's right, this fellow has already been weakened to such an extent. Shouldn't you be able to devour her? Why is she still alive? Tianyang asked curiously. The vast expanse Holy Spirit should not be such a merciful person. I've already devoured that vast expanse Holy Palace. Because the vast expanse Holy Spirit had cut off its connection with the demonic chi before completely using it as its energy source, it was not tainted by the demonic chi. At the same time, because the weapon spirit is no longer around, I've already devoured it into my own vast expanse Holy Palace. At the same time, I've also recovered some of my memories. However, I don't think I need them now. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang was stunned. The vast expanse Holy Palace had been devoured. This fellow, how could she still cry here? At that moment, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit lifted his head and forced himself to stop crying. He laughed coldly at Tianyang. I've already said it. I'm different from that fellow who only knows how to guard a trashy vast expanse Holy Palace. I've cut off my connection with the vast expanse Holy Palace. That's completely severed. The only thing missing is that crystal. My energy source has also changed from the vast expanse Holy Palace's energy source to the demonic chi. This vast expanse Holy Palace can at most be considered as having some sort of relationship with me. No matter how much you destroy it, it won't make me react at all. Otherwise, Why would I place the vast expanse holy palace in the second heaven seal, where anyone can enter? The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit said proudly. Hearing that, Tianyang was silent for a while before he spoke. Wipe your face clean before you speak. Shut up. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's face turned red. The demonic chi washed his face clean. However, although most of the demonic chi returned to the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's body, there was still a small portion that escaped. Seeing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Why are you still using the demonic chi? Aren't you afraid of dying? Previously, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had the support of the vast expanse Holy Spirit's I-Ching sword. Even if his entire body was filled with demonic chi, he could still easily survive in the God world. However, now was not the same as before. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had just fought a fierce battle with Tianyang. His vitality was greatly damaged, and the I-Ching sword was sucked away by Tianyang. Now, even if Tianyang did not continue to fight, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit would eventually disappear from this world due to the demonic chi and the God world repelling each other. That's why I didn't devour her as well. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said helplessly. This fellow has been holding on to his demonic chi source. Although he can't defeat me, he's still unwilling to disperse his demonic chi. That's why I'm afraid that I'll be contaminated by the demonic chi. That's why I let him live. However, it seems like even if he doesn't devour me, he won't be able to live on. None of your business. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit bared his teeth. You're just an idiot who relies on a stupid human. Whether I can live or not is none of your business. Letting you devour me is the most cowardly way to die. If you don't want me here, there will be other places for me. I don't believe that I, a demigod who was once at the pinnacle, can die in this God world. Goodbye. See you again. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit roared angrily. Rolling demonic chi exploded as he tried to leave. However, Tianyang waved his hand and the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was pulled back. The heavenly sword has just evolved. I can't be bothered to find trouble with you. However, your demonic chi will cause trouble for me. I have ways to purify the demonic chi. So, you'd better stay here. What a joke. How could Tianyang let such a good weapon spirit of the vast expanse, holy palace slip away? None of your business. Let go. Don't touch me. If I want to leave, you can't stop me. Yuhan, Master is here. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan walked over with a smile on her face. Seeing Ling Yuhan, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit trembled and quieted down. Seeing this, Heavenly Son clicked his tongue in wonder. Hold her down. I'll just give her a slash. Chapter 1544. In the end, Tianyang managed to slash the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit with his sword. After all, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit had been reduced to such a state. If Tianyang could still let her escape, that would be the biggest joke in the world. The demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit who was slashed by the heavenly sword was obviously very injured. She squatted in a corner and did not speak. Master, since when did the heavenly sword have the ability to purify? Ling Yuhan asked curiously as she looked at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, whose demonic chi was weakening and disappearing. It was replaced with normal spiritual energy. Previously, the heavenly sword only had the ability to devour and kill. She had never seen such a gentle purification before. After evolving to the godly state, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it has something to do with the Tsang Emperor sword. Tianyang shrugged and said, That's right. After devouring more than half of the demonized vast expanse, Holy Spirit's demonic chi, the heavenly sword finally broke through to the godly state. The reason why it summoned the Emperor's shadow to fight with him when it broke through to the Holy Emperor level was most likely because of the heavenly sword's breakthrough. Godly state. To the heavenly sword, there was no such thing as half a step, 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 half a step. Yellow grade, dark grade, earth grade, heaven grade, saint grade, and now godly state. Tianyang guessed that this might have something to do with the Tsang Emperor sword from the primordial era. However, Tianyang only knew a little about the Tsang Emperor sword. It was very strong. Other than that, there was nothing else. After entering the godly state, the heavenly sword did not change as much as Tianyang had expected. It was still the same as before, an ordinary pure white sword. However, between the destruction and devouring of the demonic chi, there was an additional function, purification. Since she had picked up a demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit, she decided to test it out. The results proved that it was quite effective. You're actually able to purify the demonic energy into the spiritual energy of the God realm. If those people who have been fighting against the devil race were to find out about this, they would probably capture you and use you to purify the experts who have been corroded by the demonic energy. The vast expanse Holy Spirit looked at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit and sighed. What memories have you recovered? Hearing that, Tianyang immediately understood that these were the memories that the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit had regained after devouring the Heaven's Expanse Saint Palace that had demonized the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit. There isn't anything useful at the moment, but there is one thing I can do, the vast expanse Saint Spirit said. It did not open its mouth, but directly released a projection. Haha, you little bastard. Now you know how precious my memory is. I don't know where this guy came from, but he wants to fight with me. If it wasn't for the Heaven's Expanse Emperor being so unrighteous and letting me go for so long, how would you have the chance to treat me like this? Hearing that, the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit jumped up and laughed out loud. I don't even know where the Heaven's Expanse monarch ran off to. How could he possibly help you? Tianyang pursed his lips. Then, he looked at the memory projection released by the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit. The content of the projection was very simple. It was a huge mountain range, and at the center of the mountain range was a place where endless spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathered. There was a huge mountain gate standing on top of it. On the mountain gate, there were a few big words written with the power of the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit. Howman. This Howman could be the force that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor left behind. It could also be the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's descendant or his disciple. According to the map of the God realm in this guy's head, this Howman is not too far away from the Cloudfire territory. It's only 300 million miles away. The Heaven's Expanse Emperor might have been assassinated, and that's why we don't know if he's dead or alive. However, if he was assassinated, he would definitely have enemies. This Howman has always been standing in the God realm. Maybe they know about the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's death. Tianyang's eyes lit up as he said, "That's right." Then, the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit glanced at the demonized vast expanse Saint Spirit, who was laughing arrogantly. Maybe we can find out why this guy is so stupid. So, the next destination is to go to Howman. Tianyang nodded slightly. Then, he looked at the huge, vast expanse Sacred Mountain. Originally, he had already stepped into the half-step godly soul realm. After stepping into the Saint Emperor realm, he was much more powerful. Now, even if the vast expanse Sacred Mountain was unusually huge, Tianyang's primordial spirit power could easily cover it without any obstruction. In the face of the threat of death, Lin Fenghua's efficiency was pretty good. It had not been long, but he had already chased away everyone in the vast expanse Sacred Mountain. The Great Sun Sect still had a lot of influence. This vast expanse energy will most likely disappear quickly after I take the legacy sword body away. Tianyang felt the vast expanse energy that was starting to disappear at the edge of the mountain and smiled. Before I leave, I'll devour all the vast expanse energy here. Outside the vast expanse Sacred Mountain, Lin Fenghua looked at the peak of the mountain. Although he could not see, he still gritted his teeth. He was Lin Fenghua, the most powerful disciple of the Great Sun Sect and a member of the 100 Territories True Dragon Roll. Since when did he have to suffer such humiliation? Beside him, Jiang Haoshuan and Jiang Xian were also preparing to leave. After witnessing Tianyang's magnificent feat of killing thousands of geniuses with a thought, Jiang Haoshuan was already scared out of his wits. Naturally, he did not dare to stay and fight with Tianyang. Jiang Xian, on the other hand, was a little unhappy because she did not succeed in inviting Tianyang. When she saw Lin Fenghua gnashing his teeth in anger, she smiled slightly. "You want to take revenge on Yang Tian?" Lin Fenghua's face froze when he heard that. He was gnashing his teeth in anger. Although he was gritting his teeth in anger, he still did not dare to fight head-on with Tianyang. The absolute difference in strength could not be made up for by a moment of anger. The Cloudfire territory is indeed the Cloudfire territory. A small territory like the Cloudfire territory only has so much potential. Jiang Xian smiled and casually whistled. A space door suddenly opened, and a black figure appeared beside Jiang Xian and bowed his head respectfully. Then, "Yang Tian, do you want to? I said I would give him 3 years, so I will give him 3 years. Did you think my words were nonsense?" Jiang Xian glanced at the black figure indifferently and walked in. As for the black figure, he paused for a moment and looked at the peak of vast sky, sacred mountain. Then, the figure disappeared and the space door closed. Lin Fenghua, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes and looked at the place where the black figure had been in disbelief. What he had just sensed was the godly state. In the next moment, while Lin Fenghua was still in shock, a voice rang in his ears. "The vast sky sacred mountain has not closed. Why are you here?" A dignified, middle-aged man appeared beside Lin Fenghua. Lin Fenghua's eyes narrowed, and he turned to look at the middle-aged man. Chapter 1545. Lord Sect Leader. Lin Fenghua's eyes widened as he looked at the dignified, middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared beside him. Unlike other cultivators who were handsome, this sect leader was tall and mighty with a burly face. His most unique feature was his left eye. It was pierced from the top right to the bottom left by a huge knife scar. 300 years ago, the sect leader of the Great Sun sect had stepped into the Nether Spring alone and found a most ferocious divine beast in the Nether Spring. He had paid the price of his left eye to kill it. It was said that this divine beast had cultivated in the Nether Spring for tens of thousands of years and had become an overlord in the Nether Spring. Many cultivators who had entered the Nether Spring had died in the mouth of this divine beast. There were even legends that this divine beast had once slaughtered 2 countries in the Cloudfire territory. However, the sect leader of the Great Sun sect had paid the price of an eye and killed it with a single sword strike. "Why are you here?" Lin Fenghua's expression changed immediately as he asked respectfully. "I heard that you caused quite a commotion in the vast sky divine mountain." The sect leader of the Great Sun sect did not even look at Lin Fenghua with his remaining right eye as he looked at the peak of the vast sky divine mountain. "It seems that the one who caused the commotion is someone else," the sect leader of the Great Sun sect said slowly. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's heart trembled as he said, "That person is Yang Tian, who killed 2 of our Great Sun sect's emissaries who went to the Xuanhua dynasty. This Yang Tian is unusually arrogant. In my floating mountain, he killed Ling Fei and Zhang Ming by force. After coming to the vast sky divine mountain, he even provoked many forces in the Cloudfire territory. He caused public outrage. This person has committed a heinous crime, but he is so powerful that I can't defeat him. I can only wait outside the vast sky divine mountain and look for an opportunity to kill him." Lin Fenghua spoke with conviction and conviction. He seemed to be filled with righteous indignation, but in reality, these words cleverly removed Lin Fenghua from blame. He deliberately magnified Tianyang's actions, but deliberately covered up the reasons for these actions and downplayed the fact that he couldn't beat him. If Tianyang was here, he would definitely sigh in admiration. As expected of the lead disciple of a large sect, his heart was so dirty. However, Lin Fenghua didn't feel that his heart wasn't dirty at all. Instead, his heart was pounding, and he was afraid that his cover wasn't perfect enough. After all, no matter what, he was the #1 disciple of the Great Sun sect, yet he couldn't even defeat a Yang Tian who popped out of nowhere. It could be said that the reputation of the Great Sun sect as the overlord of the Cloudfire territory had been ruined. If the Great Sun sect master pursued this matter, perhaps Lin Fengwo wouldn't die, but he definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Oh, towards this, the Great Sun sect leader merely made an "oh" sound before speaking indifferently. Tell me everything that happened without leaving out a single word. Inside the vast sky, divine mountain. Tianyang didn't know that the Great Sun sect leader had actually personally come to vast sky, sacred mountain. That was a true, godly state expert. At this moment, Tianyang was still in vast sky, sacred mountain, rapidly devouring the vast sky power that was about to dissipate. After the vast sky power lost the suppression of a legacy dust sword physique, it gradually dissipated. Hence, it was extremely easy for Tianyang to devour it. In addition, after refining the power of the demigod vast sky emperor lord, the vast sky origin strength had increased greatly. Devouring, it was like a fish in water. In a short while, the entire vast sky, sacred mountain's vast sky power, was devoured by Tianyang. Most of it was given to the vast sky origin, while the rest was turned into Tianyang's own cultivation. After breaking through to the Saint Emperor level, Tianyang felt that the entire Saint Emperor level didn't seem to be an obstacle to him anymore. As long as there was enough energy, he could continuously break through. With such a huge amount of vast sky power feeding the vast sky origin, it pushed Tianyang's cultivation to the middle Saint Emperor level. While compared to the huge size of vast sky sacred mountain and the vast amount of vast sky power, a mere middle Saint Emperor level cultivation really couldn't be justified. It couldn't be helped. After all, Tianyang was a Saint Emperor with 10 origins. With 9 digits, 10 was breaking through the limit and reaching the great perfection realm. However, as far as cultivation was concerned, Tianyang had never even heard of a 1 to 2 digit number, let alone a 9-digit number. Such a heaven-defying breakthrough naturally required an incomparably heaven-defying cultivation. Just the middle Saint Emperor level requires such a huge amount of energy. To break through to the peak Saint Emperor level, or even to become a god, wouldn't it consume an entire realm's worth of spiritual energy? Tianyang sighed and stood up. Almost all of the vast sky, sacred mountain's vast sky power had been devoured by Tianyang. What was left wasn't of much value. If he devoured it all, there wouldn't be much benefit. Instead, vast sky, sacred mountain might not be able to be preserved. As a huge mountain formed by the legacy dust sword body, there was a risk of it collapsing if the legacy dust sword body was taken away. If not even the slightest bit of vast expanse force was left behind, the vast expanse divine mountain that had stood in the Cloudfire territory for a long time would probably collapse completely in a few days. The chaos origin is really a fellow that consumes spiritual energy, Tianyang grumbled, but a smile appeared on his face. Although the vast sky, sacred mountain's vast sky power was only enough for Tianyang to break through to the middle Saint Emperor level, it wasn't proportionate at all. However, Tianyang was already satisfied. As a middle Saint Emperor, who knew how many middle demigods he could defeat, the 10 layers of origin realm that instantly killed thousands of geniuses hasn't been perfected yet. If it's perfected, I might be able to fight even a god. Tianyang smiled and said. During the battle with the primordial emperor, Tianyang understood the true strength of the origin realm. Therefore, when he was refining the essence of the tribulation clouds to break through, he had been studying the origin realm. In the end, he created the 10 layers of origin realm that could be said to be heaven-defying. However, after that attack, the lightning tribulation essence that Tianyang had prepared to refine his physical body was also used up, just like the heavenly sword that had just awakened his second martial soul talent. It was the strongest attack that he would use only as a last resort. Demon eyes, come out and open the 9 heavenly seals, Tianyang said casually. Hearing that, the demonized vast sky, sacred spirit jumped up and wanted to hit Tianyang's knee. What do you mean, demonize? Show some respect to me, the demonized vast sky, sacred spirit. However, the demonized vast sky, sacred spirit still reached out and opened the 9 heavenly seals. Looks like that Yang Tian not only got the vast sky exquisite pagoda, but also the treasures in the 9 heavenly seals of the vast sky, sacred mountain. The great sun sect leader said calmly, then raised his head. The aura of a god exploded. Tens of thousands of years ago, the great sun sect ancestor excavated the vast sky, sacred mountain, but was trapped outside the 9 heavenly seals and returned regretfully. Now that the 9 heavenly seals have been opened, the treasures inside must be mine, the great sun sects. The great sun sect leader laughed coldly. At this moment, vast sky, sacred mountain, 9 heavenly seals. Chapter 1546. Just as the sect leader of the giant sun sect was about to charge into the vast sky, sacred mountain, after learning about what had happened, the demonized vast sky sacred spirit had also opened the 9 heavenly restrictions of the vast sky, sacred mountain. The sect leader of the giant sun sect's face darkened as he looked at the restrictions that had suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, his figure flashed. Since you've encountered it, you'll just die. In the next moment, a huge sword appeared in the sect leader's hand. The huge sword seemed to be burning with the flames of the sun as it slashed furiously in one direction. The divine power of a godly state exploded wildly. A ray of sword light pierced through the space and charged towards that direction. At this moment, Tianyang, who was about to go look for Haoman, also sensed the sudden attack of the sword light. His expression changed as the great void sword, Embryo, merged with the heavenly sword in his hand and slashed out. 10,000 mammoth annihilation. A dazzling and resplendent ray of light shot out explosively, and it instantly collided with the flaming sword that was like the sun. Boom, boom, boom. 3 loud sounds rang out, and the heavenly sun's forward momentum suddenly came to a halt. In the surrounding space, the space around him was actually torn apart by this collision like a spider web, spreading hundreds of meters in all directions. Godly state. Almost instantly, Tianyang sensed the enormous divine power aura contained in the sword light, and his expression turned solemn, although it was still lacking compared to the Undying Prince's divine power clone. However, this was still a godly state. Ever since he stepped into the godly realm, this was the first time Tianyang felt the aura of a godly state. He blocked it. Outside the vast sky, sacred mountain, the sect leader of the giant sun sect was also stunned. There was a look of surprise on his face. His attack, a godly state, was actually blocked by Yang Tian. However, in the next moment, the sect leader of the giant sun sect curled his lips into a mocking smile. No matter how many tricks he has, he's just a saint emperor. He can block this sword, but can he block the next one? Then, rays of dazzling light bloomed from the huge sword. Seeing this, Lin Fenghua's face was also filled with shock. Could it be? This was the divine flame of the great sun sect's sect master, the flame of inheritance of the great sun sect, the great sun true fire, to deal with the Yang Tian. He actually used the colossal true fire. Go! The great sun sect's sect leader snorted coldly as he brandished his great sword and slashed out once more. This time, it directly tore open a spatial crack in front of him, and the sword light escaped into it. In the next second, he appeared in front of Tianyang. Looks like this divine realm expert is here to make trouble for me. Tianyang's lips curled up. 10 rays of light of different colors were released from the great void sword embryo in his hand. The 10 great essences had all appeared. The strongest version, 10,000 mammoths annihilation. Boom! The ground within tens of thousands of meters of vast heaven's sacred mountain was swept up by the aftermath of this strike. Sand and soil were sent flying. The spider web-like spatial crack had now turned into a spatial hole. Tianyang frowned as he looked at his torn sleeve and the wound that had already healed. It's even stronger than the 9th level true destruction flames. Divine flame looks like it's someone from the Great Sun sect. Lin Fenghua just left, and now another divine realm expert is here. This Great Sun sect really thinks highly of me. Tianyang smiled slightly. Then the vast expanse origin began to circulate. The vast expanse 9 transformations was executed, and he instantly exploded with extreme speed. He flew towards the foot of vast heaven's sacred mountain. He really wanted to see how strong this divine realm expert was. Was he worthy of using him to test his sword? I didn't expect that he could even block this move. This Yang Tian's strength is indeed extraordinary. The great Sun sect leader smiled lightly, but the disdain at the corner of his lips did not disappear. No matter what, Tianyang was just a saint emperor. Even the top 1,000 geniuses on the true dragon roll could not kill a divine realm expert. Yang Tian. At this moment, a spatial crack tore open in front of Lin Fenghua. Then, a figure shot out from it. Lin Fenghua was so frightened that he lost his composure and roared loudly. Hearing this, the great Sun sect leader's expression changed. At this moment, Tianyang had already made his move. He easily subdued Lin Fenghua and carried him in his hands as if he was carrying a little chick. Ah! When Lin Fenghua saw Tianyang appear, he was secretly delighted. This Yang Tian had come to seek death. He did not expect that in less than 0.1 seconds, his life had fallen into Tianyang's hands. Yang Tian, my great Sun sect leader is here. How dare you make a move? Seeing that Tianyang did not make a move immediately and instead looked at the great Sun sect leader, Lin Fenghua's heart calmed down. With his godly state sect leader here, even if Tianyang had broken through to Saint Emperor and his strength had increased greatly, he would not dare to be impudent. Otherwise, he would have to experience the might of a godly state sect leader. Great Sun sect leader? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. He did not expect the godly state sect leader to be the great Sun sect leader. He thought that it was just an ordinary godly state sect elder or someone of other status. He did not expect it to be the sect leader the moment he arrived. Great Sun sect, you really think highly of me. Tianyang chuckled. However, the hand holding Lin Fenghua did not show any signs of loosening. Sensing this, Lin Fenghua was instantly enraged and roared. Impudent! The great Sun sect leader is here. How dare you treat a great Sun sect disciple like this? Sect leader, quickly kill this person who has no respect for his elders. Lin Fenghua shouted. Anyway, with the great Sun sect leader's protection, Tianyang would not dare to kill him no matter what. I didn't expect this. The great Sun sect leader looked at Tianyang and said slowly, to search high and low only to find it by chance. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua was stunned. What did he mean? Could it be that the great Sun sect leader and Yang Tian had met before? I also did not expect that the great Sun sect leader did not come here with his real body. Instead, he sent a divine power clone. No, it's not a divine power clone. It's something like an external clone. Tianyang chuckled and said, What? Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face changed. This great Sun sect leader was not here with his real body? I only heard that a mysterious but powerful genius called Yang Tian of unknown origin had appeared here. That's why I sent a clone over to take a look. I did not expect that the undying emperors wanted Tianyang would use the alias Yang Tian to stir up trouble in my small cloud fire territory. The great Sun sect leader laughed wildly, and the giant sword in his hand burned with divine flames. Today I, Deng Zhongquan, am here to accept the undying emperor's bounty. The great Sun sect leader laughed and slashed out with his sword. Extreme Flame Sky Slash. Chapter 1547. Flames that seemed to be able to burn the heavens and earth burst out in an instant. That sword light arrived in front of Tianyang. Break! Tianyang snorted and slashed out with a great void sword embryo in his hand. It directly split the sword light that was wrapped in flames. At the same time, he took a few steps forward and slashed out with his sword. Ancient Suppression Sword. This sword carried the power of suppression and chaos as it slashed towards Deng Zhongquan. Deng Zhongquan sneered and waved the huge sword in his hand. An extremely fierce and domineering sword chi burst out from the huge sword and blasted towards Tianyang. Being wanted by the immortal emperor, no matter where you run to, there's only death for you. Why don't you fall into my hands as soon as possible? At least, I, Deng Zhongquan, will not torture you. Deng Zhongquan sneered. Tianyang snorted and unleashed his true origin. The true origin of a middle-stage holy king swept out like a storm. At this moment, Tianyang's figure flashed, and he released the heavens' expanse 9 changes. He came behind Deng Zhongquan, and his eyes burned with the immortal flame. First sword of the heavenly, honorable 5 swords. With an endless aura of death, an extremely sharp and terrifying sword light shot towards Deng Zhongquan's head. You have some skills. Seeing this, Deng Zhongquan sneered. However, the difference between the Saint Realm and the God Realm is not something that can be made up for with this little trick. Then, Deng Zhongquan waved his sword. The huge sword that looked heavy and slow actually became as soft as a snake under Deng Zhongquan's waving. The moment it came into contact with the first sword of the heavenly honorable 5 swords, it became incomparably hard again. At the same time, streaks of colossal primordial fire were released from a huge sword and shot out in all directions. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. A ball of distorted and silver-white light appeared on Tianyang's body. Then, like a domain, it spread out rapidly, causing ripples in the space. Space-time instant. Time and space were frozen. Tianyang didn't think that his godly state outer body incarnation would be able to stay still for long. Therefore, at the same time that the space-time origin erupted with its power, another origin was also released. Vast Expanse Origin. The origin of Sword Dao. What followed was the combination of the two. Myriad Star, Sword World. Break. Boom. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on Deng Zhongquan. Even though Deng Zhongquan was a godly state almighty, he still felt like he was being suppressed. How is this possible? The effect of instant space-time was instantly broken, and it did not even last for 0.1 seconds. Deng Zhongquan reacted immediately and released all the divine power in his body. Beneath his feet, an arc of divine power appeared and spread out in all directions. At the same time, the giant sword slashed upwards. Break! The divine flame burned, merging into the sword. A sword shattered the heavens. The suppressive force of the 10,000 stars sword realm collided with Deng Zhongquan's God Realm sword intent. Boom! Although it was the combination of the two origins, Tianyang was not familiar with the 10,000 star sword realm and could not unleash its full power. After being hit by Deng Zhongquan's sword, it broke after dozens of seconds. However, Tianyang's sword, martial soul talent, devouring heaven, Tianyang's sword, who had stepped into the God Realm, appeared in front of Tianyang. Then, endless 9-colored Xinguang, accompanied by a terrifying devouring force, gushed out in all directions. Previously, the devouring heaven's secret skill only borrowed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions. But now Tianyang was using it, plundering. It was extremely domineering as it directly snatched the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Even Deng Zhongquan, who was breaking the suppressive force of the 10,000 star sword realm, had a part of his divine power devoured by Tianyang. This was the domineering power of the Tianyang sword, who had stepped into the God Realm. Deng Zhongquan took dozens of seconds to break the 10,000 star sword realm. Tianyang's cultivation also skyrocketed in these dozens of seconds. He directly broke through the Holy Emperor realm and soared to the Demigod realm. What? Seeing this, Deng Zhongquan's pupils constricted. He was just a middle-stage Holy Emperor, and now he had become a demigod? This guy definitely has some kind of extraordinary secret technique. Maybe the reason why the Undead Emperor Palace wants him is because of this secret technique. Deng Zhongquan was overwhelmed with emotions, and the way he looked at Tianyang changed. Then, his figure suddenly disappeared. I was going to kill you and send your head to the Undying Emperor Palace to receive a reward. Now, hand over that secret skill of yours before you go to hell. His divine power was released to the extreme. Accompanied by Deng Zhongquan's ferocious voice, he slammed down on Tianyang. It was like a meteor falling and the divine fire was destroying the world. However, this attack, boom, it directly pierced through Qianyang's body and slammed into the ground, creating a huge crater dozens of miles wide on vast sky Divine Mountain. Not good. Deng Zhongquan's expression changed. At this moment, Qianyang's voice came from above. This demigod soul is really useful. Then, a sword that condensed the power of countless martial souls slashed down. Boom! Deng Zhongquan was caught off guard, and he was directly slashed down from the sky, blood spurting out of his mouth. Qianyang's figure flashed, and he appeared below Deng Zhongquan. Another sword slash, and Deng Zhongquan was slashed into the sky. How dare you? After being hit by the two swords, Deng Zhongquan's injuries weren't very serious. However, the feeling of being toyed with by Tianyang made Deng Zhongquan feel extremely humiliated. Die! His divine power completely exploded. At the same time, the huge sword released a dazzling light that could almost blind the eyes. As the divine fire burned, the surrounding temperature rose countless times. At this moment, the foot of vast firmament Divine Mountain was like hell on earth. Lord Sect Leader, Lin Finghua, who had been thrown aside by Tianyang from the beginning, suddenly changed his expression and roared. However, the spreading divine fire directly ignited Lin Finghua. In the end, not even his primordial spirit was left. At this moment, Deng Zhongquan's eyes were red from killing. How could he have the mind to take care of the Great Sun Sect's strongest disciple outside? He raised his right hand, and the Great Sun primordial fire turned into a fire dragon. With a roar, it rushed toward Tianyang. As for Deng Zhongquan himself, his figure flickered. He disappeared on the spot. Tianyang was stunned. He couldn't sense Deng Zhongquan's figure in his primordial spirit. In the next moment, countless divine power auras came from all directions. Tianyang looked up. With the fire dragon as the center, countless figures appeared around it. Each of them held a huge sword in their hands, and their faces were ferocious. This is the external incarnation. It only has a chance to display these 10 million incarnations once every 100 years. Countless Deng Zhongquan spoke at the same time. Divine power condensed on the long sword in their hands. It was also condensed, but at this moment, it was more than 100 times stronger than before. Secret technique. After I kill your physical body, I will interrogate your primordial spirit, and I will get the answer. Now go to hell. Countless huge swords slashed out, and countless sword lights were released. Chapter 1548. For the first time, Tianyang felt how terrifying Deng Zhongquan was. It wasn't his strength that was terrifying, but his wealth that was terrifying. Tianyang had seen this kind of doppelganger technique before. It would take a lot of cultivation resources to create one, and it might not even succeed. Deng Zhongquan had created a few hundred doppelganger at once. I will get the reward from the Undying Emperor Court, and I will also get your secret technique. Before I agree to it, you will have to endure the burning of the divine fire for thousands of years. Deng Zhongquan's face was ferocious, and the countless sword lights blasted towards Tianyang at the same time. Immortal origin. Streaks of immortal divine fire burned, forming a huge flame array around Tianyang. At the same time, he unleashed the origin force of formation too. He used the undying godly flames to draw a defensive formation in an instant. If he had known earlier, he would have cultivated the vast expanse 9 transformations to the 9th transformation before coming out. If he had cultivated it to the 9th transformation, these attacks would have hit the air. Boom, 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 boom. Countless sword lights fell, and the doppelganger that Deng Zhongquan had created dissipated. These doppelganger could only be used once, which was why Deng Zhongquan said that he could only use it once every 100 years. No matter if it's a Saint Emperor or a half-god, they will all die in front of God. Deng Zhongquan said coldly. The doppelganger showed signs of energy exhaustion. It became slightly transparent. However, it's a pity that Lin Finghua is dead. Deng Zhongquan said indifferently. However, he didn't care about it. The 5 strongest people haven't come out yet, and it's just Lin Fenghua. Then, Deng Zhenkuan's figure flashed, and he came to the center of the huge pit created by the hundreds of sword lights. It's a pity that the vast sky divine mountain will no longer exist. However, the treasures that this person obtained will all belong to me. Deng Zhenkuan smiled, and he stretched out his hand, wanting to disperse the smoke and dust from the previous attack. At this moment, a sword light burst out. Deng Zhenkuan's right palm was directly penetrated. Immediately after, a figure flashed in front of Deng Zhenkuan. Then, a huge palm print blasted towards Deng Zhenkuan. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Tianyang's laughter could be heard as his right arm was still rapidly growing. Although there were remnants of Deng Zhenkuan's divine power, the power of the immortal divine body was still unstoppable. Although it was obstructed, Tianyang's right arm, which was only left with a shoulder, grew fingers in just a short while. What? Seeing this, Deng Zhenkuan's expression changed drastically. What kind of demonic art was this? Even if he himself was there, he would have been severely injured. Indestructible body and indestructible blood. This is the true blood rebirth. Tianyang chuckled. At this moment, the great void sword embryo in his left hand slashed out again. Deng Zhenkuan didn't have time to repair his pierced right arm. He revolved his true essence with all his strength, trying to resist this attack. However, Tianyang had already reached Deng Zhenkuan's back and stabbed him with his sword. At this moment, the immortal Great Mystery Palm also hit Deng Zhenkuan's face directly. Boom! Deng Zhenkuan was directly sent flying. However, the material used for this external avatar was extraordinary. Even though it was hit by Tianyang's fierce attack, it was still able to withstand it. After almost flying for 10,000 meters, it landed at the edge of the huge pit. How did you survive? Deng Zhenkuan's face was filled with disbelief. He knew the power of the previous attack best, not to mention a holy emperor who relied on some secret skill to enter the demigod realm. Even if he was also in the godly state, even if his real body was here, he might not be able to survive. How could this young Tian survive? I almost died. Tianyang smiled and said. If one looked closely, they would discover that there was a small dot of color between Tianyang's eyebrows. It was slightly different from the rest of his skin. This was because under the countless sword lights, Tianyang had been reduced to a small piece of skin. Even the rest of his flesh had been destroyed by the sword lights. If Tianyang had only cultivated the immortal blood and mastered the rebirth from a drop of blood, he would have been killed by such a large-scale destruction. How could a mere origin world and a formation that had been set up at the last moment possibly withstand this attack? In fact, that divine power was so close to annihilating the heavenly sun's skin. Unfortunately, Deng Zhenkuan's luck wasn't good enough. His opponent was Tianyang, who had cultivated the immortal body and condensed the immortal origin. Rebirth from a drop of blood had truly reached the level where even a drop of blood, a piece of skin, or even a cell could be reborn with the immortal blood. Impossible. Impossible. No one below the godly state could survive that attack of mine. Deng Zhenkuan kept shaking his head and growling. Then, as if he had thought of something, his body trembled. Wanted by the immortal emperor. Could it be that you have the immortal blood? Deng Zhenkuan roared. The arrogance and disdain in his eyes were replaced by fear the moment he said those words. This was the performance of the immortal body. Wasn't this the legendary immortal blood? Coupled with the fact that the immortal emperor wanted him, it was very likely that Yang Tian was originally a member of the immortal emperor. It was only due to various reasons that he was wanted by the immortal emperor. Thinking of this, Deng Zhenkuan suddenly felt that he had discovered the truth of the matter, and his body trembled. That was the immortal emperor. Now that I've explained, can we make our move? Tianyang smiled, and in the next moment he made his move. The 10 origin sources had brought Tianyang an unparalleled difficulty in cultivation. At the same time, it had also brought Tianyang an incomparably vast amount of true origin, not to mention one rebirth. Even if Tianyang was reborn 3 or 4 times, he would still have enough true origin to burst out with his strongest combat power. Since I can't escape, then I'll have to kill him. Seeing this, Deng Zhongquan's eyes suddenly became ruthless. The giant sword in his hand slashed out fiercely. Giant sun howls the sky. Countless divine flames condensed and burned like an ancient ferocious beast, fiercely attacking Tianyang. At the same time, the giant sun hanging high in the sky also gave Deng Zhongquan endless power at this moment. Die! Ah! Deng Zhongquan roared. At this moment, Tianyang's figure flashed. Opening his hands, he stood in the air. In an area that couldn't be seen by the naked eye, countless blades condensed and formed. Heaven Emperor's God-piercing blade is quite useful even in the divine world. Tianyang looked at the ferocious giant sword and smiled. Go! Thousands of God-piercing blades shot out explosively. Deng Zhongquan's expression changed drastically. Before he could defend himself, Tianyang's God-piercing blade rain, which had been charging for a long time, crazily pierced through him. From death to rebirth to the immortal great mystery palm and the few minutes when Tianyang attacked Deng Zhongquan, they had been condensing continuously. God-piercing blade. Today, Chapter 1549. God-piercing saber. Thousands of sabers rained down on Deng Zhongquan like a real storm of swords. In the previous battle, Tianyang had already sensed some of this. The materials that Deng Zhongquan used to refine this avatar were extremely powerful. If it was destroyed by force, Tianyang could easily deal with it. However, it would take a lot of effort. It would be better to deal with Deng Zhongquan's divine soul directly. No matter how strong Deng Zhongquan's divine soul was, the divine soul power attached to this avatar would not be strong. Boom, 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 boom. Countless God-piercing sabers pierced through Deng Zhongquan's divine soul. Even at the divine soul level, loud noises could be heard in the real world. Deng Zhongquan's expression became extremely twisted and ferocious at this moment. It was as if thousands of arrows had pierced through his heart. In other words, this was what it was like. However, the arrows were replaced by sabers, and the heart was replaced by the more important divine soul. Yang Tian! Deng Zhongquan roared crazily. However, Tianyang's expression did not change, and he smiled slightly. Deng Zhongquan's divine soul was pierced through by countless God-piercing sabers and could not move. Tianyang waved his hand, and once again, countless God-piercing sabers were formed. The most obvious weakness of this kind of avatar was that it controlled the divine soul of the avatar. Damn you! Deng Zhongquan roared, and his body suddenly emitted rays of bright golden light, which blocked the God-piercing sabers that filled the sky. At the same time, a layer of shield that moved along with his body also successfully protected Deng Zhongquan. His divine soul, which had been pierced through by countless God-piercing sabers and was on the verge of death, was also preserved. I want you dead. Deng Zhongquan's eyes were filled with killing intent. He roared and charged towards Tianyang. As a godly state expert, he had paid a great price to refine this avatar that belonged to the same realm. How could Deng Zhongquan not know the weakness of all clones? Therefore, after Tianyang had caught Deng Zhongquan off guard, Deng Zhongquan had activated his divine artifact before he could even unleash his final attack, the primordial spirit defense. Giant Sun, sky-piercing sword. Deng Zhongquan let out a furious roar as the giant sword in his hand exploded. Meanwhile, wisps of giant true flames of the giant sun burned fiercely. Their god force turned into brilliant golden rays that spread in all directions. As the flames burned, the fragments of the enormous sword gradually took shape. Together, they formed a 1,000-meter-long sword, with god power as the body, and the shards forming the structure. It was an enormous sword. Now die. The colossal true fire blazed as Deng Zhongquan roared. This colossal sun, sky-piercing sword directly shattered the void. With a ferocious speed, it charged towards heavenly sun. It could be said that even if a god didn't die, he would be severely injured. Oh no! Seeing this, the vast expanse sacred spirit, who was in the Vientiane sky market, was shocked. Even if Tianyang had broken through to the demigod realm with the sky-devouring secret skill, It was almost impossible for him to block this sword. At this moment, Tianyang reached out his hand. The 10 essences floated around him. At the same time, from head to toe, the realm of chaos, the sword realm, the vast expanse realm, the life and death realm, the space-time realm, the undying realm, 10 origin realms were formed at this moment. At that moment, within a radius of 100 feet around Tianyang, it was as if the laws of the world had been changed. This is... Deng Zhongquan's pupils contracted as he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. His expression changed drastically. Meanwhile, Tianyang raised the great void sword embryo in his hand. It was as if the greatest ruler of the world was no longer this world. Instead, it was him. The godly state controls the laws and rules this world. The 10 origin realms can also do that. Tianyang looked at the giant sun sky-piercing sword, which had become much slower after entering the 10 origin realms, and said slowly, "This was the true essence of entering the holy emperor realm with the 10 origins, with the power of a holy emperor. It emitted the brilliance of a god. I am the ruler of this world. These 10-fold origin worlds shall be named after me. Let them be known as the heavenly realms." Tianyang said indifferently. In the next moment, the 10 origin realms emitted an unparalleled brilliance. God realm. Impossible. I can't even form a god realm. How can a demigod do that? Giant sun sky-piercing sword kill him. Immediately. Deng Zhongquan roared, and the burning giant sun sky-piercing true fire roared again. Tianyang, on the other hand, looked indifferent as he struck out with his sword. Heaven and earth roared. "I command that there shall be no hostile beings in the heaven realm." The long sword swept lightly, leaving a few afterimages in the air. The incomparably dazzling and domineering giant sun sky-piercing sword. It suddenly collapsed. Impossible. Seeing this, Deng Zhongquan immediately roared in disbelief, and the giant sun sky-piercing true fire burned again. I, Deng Zhongquan, am the sect master of the giant sun sect, the supreme emperor of the entire cloud fire territory. In the cloud fire territory, I can't be defeated, and I won't be defeated. Giant sun divine technique. Explode. On Deng Zhongquan's body, the dazzling and powerful giant sun sky-piercing true fire seemed to soar into the sky. Seeing this, Tianyang's face also showed a trace of surprise. Even the original body's primordial spirit was forcefully transmitted to this clone through endless time and space. Tianyang said in surprise, and then he took a step forward. It was not a movement technique, but in Tianyang's heaven realm. Tianyang directly made the space send him to the edge of the heaven realm. Tianyang did not move, but in less than a millisecond, he had been transmitted countless times. Arriving in front of Tianyang. Firmament sun-breaking fist. Killing intent released in Deng Zhongquan's eyes, clenched his fist, and punched out. At this moment, the divine Tao laws erupted. What belonged to Tianyang was the heaven realm that dominated the world, and what belonged to Deng Zhongquan was his divine Tao laws. Giant sun divine Tao, destroy for me. The surrounding heaven and earth fluctuated abnormally. And then, a terrifying fist mark that was enough to shatter a small world burst out. Tianyang's expression did not change, and the heaven realm suddenly erupted. It quickly condensed on the sword edge of the great void sword embryo and slashed out fiercely. Sword and fist collided. Boom! Previously, Deng Zhongquan's attack only shattered apart a vast sky, divine mountain. But this time, the collision of two great deity realm. It directly destroyed this heavenly divine mountain that no longer had the protection of any 9 heavenly restrictions. Raised to the ground, the surrounding space swelled and trembled a few times, and, as if it had exploded, a spatial crack that spread 10 miles. Sorry now, my heaven realm is stronger. Tianyang smiled slightly. That had the power of Deng Zhongquan's main body's primordial spirit, completely erupting the giant sun true fire deity realm's flame power. operating the giant sun sect's legacy cultivation method, the giant sun divine art, the firmament's sun-shattering fist. An incomparably huge fist mark that wanted to burn heaven and earth. It was directly cut in half by this sword. This is impossible. If this fist mark had substance, it would be an incomparably neat incision. However, after being cut in half, the fist mark turned into two clusters of rapidly extinguishing flames, dissipating away. And the great void sword embryo also took advantage of the situation, slashing into Deng Zhongquan's neck. The power of the physical body was released. This time, no matter how powerful the clone material that Deng Zhongquan refined was, it could only be one sword beheaded. This grudge. Deng Zhongquan's primordial spirit flew out, screaming angrily. And at this time, Tianyang's expression did not change. Behind him, tens of thousands of blade edges that had long condensed shot out. Bang, 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 bang. In an instant, it pierced through this primordial spirit. Chapter 1550. Tianyang looked at Deng Zhongquan's disappearing primordial spirit and physical body, and his face turned pale immediately. The consumption of the heaven realm was much greater than Tianyang had imagined. Tianyang had only used the essence of the lightning tribulations to kill the thousands of sky prides. As he did not consume much energy, he thought that the heaven realm would not consume much energy, and that it would at most be at the same level as the one sword of Tianyang. Now it seemed that the one sword of Tianyang did not even consume half of the heaven realm's energy. It was not that he did not consume much energy, but the essence of the lightning tribulations was too powerful. The reason why the Fighting Ten Parties and Lin Fenghua could survive was because they were forced to use their most terrifying trump cards. This Deng Zhongquan is really ruthless. The giant sun primordial flame burned fiercely. Tianyang spat out a mouthful of blood and reached out his hand. A suction force was released. He took out the space bag that was about to be burned to ashes from the giant sun primordial flame. However, the precious material amalgamation, the doppelganger, was burned to ashes by the giant sun primordial flame. Bang! After doing all this, Tianyang could not take it anymore and fell to the ground with a thud. He was unconscious. Master Ling Yuhan, who had been watching the battle, rushed out from the Vientiane sky ruins and came to Tianyang's side. The vast expanse Holy Spirit also appeared immediately. After devouring the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit's heaven's expanse Saint Palace, it had reached the peak of the Holy Emperor realm. It sensed Tianyang's condition and said, "He's fine. He just consumed too much energy. However, you over there, if you want to fight, don't blame me for not listening to Tianyang and killing you." The vast expanse Holy Spirit raised its head and looked coldly at the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit. Hearing that, the demonized vast expanse Holy Spirit was stunned. It then snorted, "I'm the weapon spirit of the demonized vast expanse Saint Palace. How could I use such despicable means? Don't judge me with your narrow-mindedness." After that, a beam of light that was a mixture of heaven and earth spiritual chi and demonic chi flashed, and the vast expanse Holy Spirit returned to the Vientiane sky ruins. The heavens expanse Saint Spirit immediately brought Tianyang back. This was vast sky, sacred mountain. Lin Fenghua, the Fighting Ten Parties, and the others had chased away all the cultivators. The battle between Tianyang and Deng Zhongquan had destroyed the entire vast sky, sacred mountain. By right, there shouldn't be anyone. However, it was hard to guarantee that there would be other forces watching in the dark. The current Tianyang did not have the slightest ability to fight. At the edge of the Cloudfire territory, it was as far away as the entire Cloudfire territory from vast sky, godly mountain. Pooh! As the primordial spirit returned to its original position, Deng Zhongquan, the sect master of the Great Sun sect, spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale for an instant. Then, he felt that the godly soul he had separated from his doppelganger had shattered. Who is it? Deng Zhongquan's eyes instantly turned blood red. The puppet that he had painstakingly refined had actually been destroyed by someone. He had used all the resources that the Great Sun sect had gathered for hundreds of years to refine a mere godly state doppelganger. Normally, the Great Sun sect's affairs in the Cloudfire territory were all managed by his doppelganger. As a godly state doppelganger, those who offended the Great Sun sect could also be easily suppressed. How could it be that he did not even know what his doppelganger had done, and his doppelganger was mysteriously destroyed? When I return, the person who dared to destroy my doppelganger will definitely be sent to the Blood River 800 miles away. Deng Zhongquan roared angrily. Countless flocks of birds flew up from the entire mountain range. Then, this extremely famous, dangerous land at the border between the Cloudfire territory and the Middle Cloud territory was directly razed to the ground by Deng Zhongquan's roar. When a godly state expert was angry, it was terrifying. Deng Zhongquan, who was far away at the edge of the Cloudfire territory, was not the only one who was furious. The entire Great Sun sect and the entire Cloudfire territory were completely shaken. The upper echelons of the Great Sun sect basically all knew that Deng Zhongquan, who was in charge of the sect's affairs, was actually the doppelganger of the sect leader. Therefore, this doppelganger also had a soul tablet that was bound to his life in the Great Sun sect to prevent the doppelganger from dying. The sect leader was also countless miles away, causing the Great Sun sect to be paralyzed. However, ever since Deng Zhongquan had abandoned Wu Zun's doppelganger, which had no combat power to speak of, and refined this godly state doppelganger 3,000 years ago, this soul tablet had not changed at all. Those who guarded the soul tablet hall almost never looked up. The sect leader was invincible. The doppelganger of the sect leader was also invincible. It was almost a full day after Deng Zhongquan's doppelganger was killed by Tianyang that the Great Sun sect finally realized. The topmost soul tablet had shattered. Deng Zhongquan's doppelganger was dead. Is it possible to contact the sect leader? The death of the doppelganger was equivalent to the Great Sun sect not having a godly state expert who could suppress the entire Cloudfire territory. The Great Sun sect did have other godly state experts, but compared to other major forces, such as the Jiang clan's Divine Lord Jiang, it was almost incomparable. If major forces, such as the Jiang clan, were to know about it, the Great Sun sect would most likely face a catastrophe. The sect leader went to the Zhongyun territory to search for treasures and may not have returned yet. There is really no way to contact him. In the Elder Hall of the Great Sun sect, all the elders were in a complete mess. However, other than the nameless panic, they actually could not do anything. Deng Zhongquan could not be contacted, and his doppelganger was dead. Although these elders were strong, their opponents were also strong. Immediately shrink the sphere of influence of the Great Sun sect, and keep a low profile for the time being. At the same time, do a good job of concealing it. This time, the sect leader's doppelganger died because he went to the vast sky, Sacred Mountain. In other words, the death of the sect leader's doppelganger is definitely related to what happened in the vast sky, Sacred Mountain. So, go investigate immediately. Investigate everything that happened in the vast sky, Sacred Mountain. One of the only two godly state elders roared and decided the outcome of this meeting. However, in the next moment, an elder rushed in hurriedly and roared in disbelief. Lord Grand Elder, the vast sky, Sacred Mountain. The vast sky, Sacred Mountain is gone. What? Instantly, the Elder Hall of the Great Sun sect boiled over again. Under this boiling atmosphere, no one cared about the death of the strongest disciple outside, Lin Fenghua. Perhaps when they cared, that would be the time when Tianyang left the Cloudfire territory. Our clan's Jiang Xian, she likes the Yang Tian. Jiang Haoshuan half knelt on the ground as the tall, middle-aged man in front of him spoke slowly. 3 years? In 3 years, the Saint Emperor has reached the point where our clan values him. It is almost impossible. Jiang Xian will most likely forget about this person. Then, there is no need to do anything for the time being. A low voice sounded. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan was stunned. But he has the vast sky, Sacred Mountains. Since Jiang Xian has said so, then there is no need to do anything. Yang Tian cannot bear our anger. and we cannot bear the anger of our clan. Since we have received the news, we can leave." Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan could only nod and leave. The Jiang clan, the main clan. That was a great clan with an Archean heritage. This time, Tianyang slept for close to 10 days. In the first 2 or 3 days, there were still people who came to the vast sky, sacred mountain, to investigate. However, in the last few days, as there was only a big hole left in the vast sky, sacred mountain, the number of people who came to ask about it decreased significantly. The vast sky, sacred spirit also took this opportunity to leave the vast sky, sacred mountain, and return to Qingyuan City. At this moment, in Qingyuan City. Chapter 1551. His Highness the Prince has arrived. A loud and clear shout rang out. Then Tianyang saw the city gate in front of him suddenly close. Tianyang had only regained consciousness today. With Tianyang's powerful physical strength and the chaotic source's strong ability to attract the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, Tianyang's genuine yuan had almost recovered by the 3rd day. However, the huge consumption of the celestial realm was not only on genuine yuan, but also on the primordial spirit. Even though Tianyang had condensed his origin and used the divine Tao law to construct a small person with a divine soul, he could not withstand such a huge consumption. It was not until today that his genuine yuan had recovered to the point where Tianyang could wake up. Therefore, due to the limitation of his primordial spirit, the amount of genuine yuan that Tianyang could exert was not at its peak. His current strength was probably only slightly stronger than that of the fighting 10 parties. Hey, why did the city gate close when we were just about to enter? It's far from a time for the city gate to close. While Tianyang was still thinking, Ling Yuhan could not hold it in any longer. After the inexplicable arrival of the prince, the city gate was closed. They were just one step away from entering. Even if they were bullying others, they could not be so brazen. If it wasn't for Ling Yuhan's quick reaction and taking a step back, the city gate, along with the city walls of Qingyuan City, would have been destroyed. Today is the day that the second prince of the enigmatic fire dynasty has arrived in Qingyuan City. We have already said that Qingyuan City will be closed in advance today. Don't blame us if you didn't hear us. Moreover, I advise you not to barge into Qingyuan City. Otherwise, the second prince and the peerless geniuses he brought will not easily let off anyone who dares to disobey the rules they set. The city guard mocked. Today, when the second prince entered the city, one of the maidservants who looked pretty took an extra look at him. He was bursting with a sense of superiority. Of course, he did not care about the 2 people who suddenly appeared. He was about to marry the prince's maidservant and be promoted to the city gate officer. He would become an unattainable figure. These 2 people disturbed his daydream. Naturally, he would not be polite. Are you Tianyang or Yang Tian? Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be so hesitant about this guard who is at most at the spiritual ocean realm after becoming a saint emperor. Just kill him. In any case, no one in this whatever city can beat you, and no one will dare to make trouble for you. The voice of the demonified, vast expanse, Saint Spirit's voice sounded. Although his voice was still so young, his words could make most people shudder. I'm not interested. We just came to say goodbye to Yang Qingwan. There's no need to make such a big fuss. Tianyang said with a frown. Hey, do you think my words are nonsense? Didn't you hear me? Why don't you get lost? The city guard sneered. Hearing this, Tianyang did not bother to talk nonsense. He directly rose into the air. You are a cultivator? But don't think that you can ignore the second prince's orders just because you are a cultivator. Seeing this, the city guard was shocked. Then he smiled viciously and the spear in his hand shot out. A strong wind blew, and it shot towards Tianyang's left arm. After all, Tianyang only wanted to pass the checkpoint. The city guard did not want to kill him. I already said get lost, Tianyang said calmly. His body, however, did not move at all. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a voice rang out. It was only for an instant. The powerful spear that was infused with the power of Qingyuan City, which was enough to injure Ascension Realm cultivators and even Wu Zun, was directly shattered. The fragments flew everywhere. The city guard's expression changed drastically. He stood below and dodged in panic. Even so, the shard still shot him in the left arm as if it had eyes of its own. Moreover, all of them, without exception, hit his left arm, and only his left arm was hit. However, from the beginning to the end, Tianyang did not control it at all. Everything was because this spear bombarded Tianyang. The force field around Tianyang's body shattered it and counterattacked. What kind of strength is this? The city guard knelt on the ground and looked at Tianyang and Wu Zun, who had disappeared in the sky. His whole body was trembling like a sieve. There was not a single trace of blood on his face. He could naturally see that Tianyang did nothing but talk. However, just like that, his spear automatically exploded, automatically shot back, and automatically pierced through his left arm. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of exception. I've never heard of this kind of magic. The city guard trembled. Then, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face changed. I hope they are not going to deal with the second prince. Otherwise, Qingyuan City will change. While the city guard was shocked and even terrified, Tianyang and Wu Zun had crossed more than half of Qingyuan City and arrived in front of Yang Qinghuan's commandery princess mansion. Tianyang did not have any friendship with Yang Qinghuan. He was just afraid that she would be hurt because of him, so he specially came over. Haoman was not in the Cloudfire territory. If the giant sun sect attacked Yang Qinghuan, Tianyang could not come to her rescue. Although the giant sun sect, which dominated the entire Cloudfire territory, most likely would not think highly of an inconspicuous commandery princess in the small Xuanhua dynasty. When did Yang Qinghuan become so popular? Tianyang looked at the brightly lit and bustling commandery princess mansion in front of him and said in surprise. Even when Tianyang killed Wang Ling and Wang Ba and the old lady of the Wang family, Yang Qinghuan was not so popular. However, when he saw the two cold-faced guards in front of the commandery princess mansion, who exuded the aura of a great saint of human grade, Tianyang understood. In Qingyuan City, there was no force that could make a great saint of human grade condescend to be a guard. Then, there was only one. What kind of prince is this? Don't tell me he's the one who sent that idiot to recruit me? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan also thought of Qi Xiaofeng, who was extremely arrogant and quickly wilted. It's really possible. Ling Yu smiled coldly and said, Who knows? Maybe the reason why he came this time is also from Master. Maybe. Tianyang shrugged non-committally. Then his figure flashed and directly came to the commandery princess mansion. Yang Qinghuan only knew that Tianyang had gone to Haoxiao Sacred Mountain, but she certainly did not know what he had done there. That was to say, if the second prince really thought highly of himself, it was possible that he would make the so-called 3 visits to the thatched cottage. How many times have I told you? Yang Tian has already left, and he won't be coming back. Yang Qinghuan's angry voice rang out. Hearing this, the handsome young man opposite her also chuckled. If that's the case, then you'll have one less powerful whetstone. At the side, the black-clothed young man spoke slowly. It's not just any random Tom, Dick, or Harry that I can challenge. In Qingyuan City, regardless of whether Yang Tian is here or not, there won't be any. Chapter 1552. The young man's arrogant voice rang out slowly. Yang Qinghuan was stunned. She looked up and saw a young man who was tall and sturdy, but not shockingly burly, standing beside the second prince. In terms of appearance, this young man was not as handsome as the second prince. He was just an ordinary man. However, the imposing aura that he exuded made the second prince feel pressured, even though he was not angry. Second prince, the young geniuses in the Xuanhua dynasty that you found for me may have higher or similar cultivation than me, but their actual combat strength is still too weak. This Yang Tian said that he went to vast Sky Divine Mountain, but even if he comes back, he shouldn't be a match for me. I've wasted enough time. If this continues, please allow me to take my leave, the young man said. Hearing this, the second prince's expression changed immediately. He smiled bitterly and said, The Xuanhua dynasty is indeed a small place. It's hard to have any powerful geniuses. However, this Yang Tian is different. When he was at the peak of Heavenly Great Saint, He could already kill a half-saint emperor. Now that vast sky divine mountain is gone, he must have come back. Perhaps he has already stepped into the half-saint emperor realm and has the ability to fight with you. The second prince said respectfully. Hearing this, the young man nodded noncommittally. Seeing this, the second prince heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he turned his head and shouted at Yang Qingwan. Yang Qingwan, if Yang Tian is here, ask him to come out immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. The second prince's aura was released. Hearing this, Yang Qingwan immediately gritted her teeth. Her eyes were filled with displeasure as she looked at the second prince. The first time he sent Qi Xiaofeng over, he was arrogant and did not take Tianyang seriously at all. Then, after knowing that Tianyang had easily defeated Qi Xiaofeng, he immediately rushed over, completely forgetting about Tianyang's impoliteness, and tried to recruit him. Now that there was a stronger candidate by his side, he immediately abandoned Tianyang and even used Tianyang as a whetstone for this person. Although this kind of two-faced person was good at politics, Yang Qingwan disliked him very much. You're not moving, are you? The reason why Jiang Hao came to our Enigma Fire Dynasty is merely a coincidence. It just so happens that there's Yang Tian, who's not weak, to fight for brother Jiang Hao. Why aren't you pulling him up? Jiang Hao is a half-saint emperor, and he's a powerful genius who has already condensed an origin. If you delay Jiang Hao's time, you will. The second prince snorted and stood up. Yang Tian? The Qingyuan city was a place that even the first prince could not touch. Now that a genius had finally appeared in the city, it was only natural that he wanted to recruit him as soon as possible. However, Jiang Hao had appeared. So what if a mere Yang Tian went a vast firmament, godly mountain? How could he be compared to Jiang Hao, who came from a huge force outside the Cloudfire territory? Now that he was fighting for Jiang Hao, it was to make full use of Yang Tian's remaining value. How could Yang Tian refuse? By doing this, are you worthy of your previous actions? Hearing this, Yang Qingwan was so angry that she trembled. She did not expect the second prince to do this. How dare you? The second prince's face darkened when he heard this. Is this the tone you use when talking to your second prince cousin? Now immediately go find Yang Tian. Otherwise, don't think that your *T princess position can restrict me much. The second prince shouted. Hearing this, Yang Qingwan trembled. The second prince of the Enigma Fire Dynasty is just looking for a little peek, heavenly great saint. Why are you so angry? A clear laugh was heard. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan appear between Yang Qingwan and the second prince. Hearing this, the second prince was stunned. Then, his face darkened as he looked at Tianyang. His tone was extremely cold. It was filled with disdain. You are Yang Tian? The second prince squinted and asked. Now that there was a powerful genius outside the Cloudfire territory, Jiang Hao, Yang Tian was useless. Perhaps the only use was to satisfy Jiang Hao, this extremely battle-hungry genius's desire to battle. This little use was nothing in the second prince's eyes. You are Yang Tian? On the other side, Jiang Hao looked at Tianyang, who suddenly appeared. His eyes shone brightly. Judging from the way you appeared, you are different from the trash that the second prince helped me find. I will suppress my strength to the peak heavenly great saint and fight with you, Jiang Hao said indifferently. At the same time, the aura of a half-saint emperor released from his body gradually decreased. Seeing this, Tianyang ignored the second prince and said to Jiang Hao thoughtfully, No need. Forget about the peak heavenly great saint. Just show me your strongest strength. Yang Tian, although Jiang Hao only has the cultivation of a half-saint emperor, he completely has the combat strength of a holy emperor. Seeing that Tianyang really wanted to fight with Jiang Hao's strongest strength, Yang Qingwan could not help but say. Moreover, not only the young geniuses of the Xuanhua dynasty, even the experts of the older generation of the Xuanhua dynasty, a peak Saint Emperor Guardian guarding the capital, were defeated by him. The Guardian's strength is much stronger than the Great Sun Sect's emissary, Ling Fei and Zhang Ming. Yang Qingwan said hurriedly. It could be seen that she was not saying these words to belittle Tianyang. Instead, she sincerely wanted Tianyang to stop. After all, the legend that Tianyang had created in vast Sky Divine Mountain was far from being spread to a small dynasty like the Xuanhua dynasty. Therefore, in Yang Qinghuan's mind, Yang Tian's highest achievement was to easily defeat 2 Saint Emperors. Not to mention 2 Saint Emperors. Even 20 Saint Emperors were trash in front of Jiang Hao, who had defeated the peak Saint Emperor Guardian of the capital. It's okay. Tianyang smiled and looked at Jiang Hao, whose expression was not good. I don't want you to use your full strength. Whether you use your full strength or exceed your limit, you only need to use your strongest strength. I'll only use one move. Tianyang smiled and said without any malice. Hearing this, the second prince and Yang Qinghuan were stunned. Meanwhile, Ling Yuhan covered her mouth and snickered. As for Jiang Hao, after being stunned for a moment, he instantly went into a frenzied state. His eyes instantly turned red as he stared at Tianyang and said word by word, "What did you say? Since that's the case, I'll satisfy your desire to die." Jiang Hao roared angrily, and his peak half-saint emperor cultivation base exploded. Not only that, but a mysterious yellow power also condensed in his fist. Boundless hundred-shattering fist. Boundless origin erupt. Waves of boundless power rushed out like a gust of wind. Seeing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. His guess was right. Whether it's in my original place or in the Cloudfire territory, no one dares to humiliate me like this. An incomparably terrifying, destructive force burst out. You're defeated. Boundless origin. Tianyang's lips opened slightly and spat out 4 words. Then, a boundless world appeared along with the intermediate Saint Emperor's true Yuan. Break. Boom. The powerful fist was instantly broken. Jiang Hao's entire body flew out, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with deep disbelief. Since you have the boundless origin, Tianyang smiled and pulled Jiang Hao back. Chapter 1553. What's the relationship between you and Haoman? Tianyang chuckled, feeling incredulous. He had just received news about the descendants of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord from the demonized Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, and someone from Haoman had appeared in front of him. The Heaven's Expanse origin was not like the Flame origin or the Space origin. As long as one comprehended the relevant saint path, they could condense an origin. It could be said that the Heaven's Expanse origin was created by the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord. Other similar origins, such as Tianming's Heavenly Cloud Saint Path, were similar to the Heaven's Expanse Saint Path, but they were not. If they were similar, Tianyang would naturally be able to recognize them at a glance. However, the Heaven's Expanse origin that Jiang Hao displayed was even purer than the one that he cultivated himself. Who else could he be if he was not from Haoman? How do you know that I'm from Haoman? Jiang Hao's pupils contracted. He could not care less about the blood that was still spurting out of his mouth as he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Which force are you from? The Heavenly Cloud Palace, the Zhongshuan Demon Sect, or the Ancient Tao Sect? All the hairs on Jiang Hao's body stood on end, and his gaze towards Tianyang quickly turned into one of hatred. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. It seemed that these 3 sects were Haoman's main enemies. However, he did not know if it had anything to do with the mysterious disappearance of the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord and the disintegration of the Heaven's Expanse Palace. None of them, Tianyang said honestly. If not for Jiang Hao, he would not even know who these 3 forces were. Impossible. Haoman, have always been in seclusion. Even in the territory where I, Haoman, am from, there are very few people who know about me. The Cloudfire territory is extremely far away from Haoman. Even the overlord of the Cloudfire territory, the Great Sun Sect, might not know about Haoman, let alone someone from a small Xuanhua dynasty. You're not a member of the 3 major sections. How could you know about Haoman's existence? Jiang Hao's chest heaved up and down as he waved his arms and legs. If it were not for Tianyang's vast world suppressing him, he would have charged forward to fight Tianyang. I already have the vast expanse source. Isn't that enough proof? Tianyang said helplessly. Hearing this, Jiang Hao was stunned. If that was the case. No. 700 years ago, my Haoman had a supreme elder who reached the origin heavenly king realm. But he betrayed the Haoman and ran off to who knows where. Who knows if you're the descendant of that supreme elder, trying to sneak in a Haoman to steal the inheritance left behind by the heavens' expanse monarch. Jiang Hao shouted angrily. Tianyang's mouth twitched. The inheritance of the heavens' expanse monarch. This guy just said it out loud. If Tianyang's temperament was any worse, he might really have the intention to sneak into Haoman to steal the inheritance of the heavens' expanse monarch. Emperor's expanse monarch, inheritance. These two words together were enough to tempt most of the people below the godly state, and even those at the godly state. Luckily, apart from Tianyang, the rest of the people present, including the second prince and Yang Qingwan, did not know what an emperor was. Otherwise, Haoman would be finished in a few days. Then what about this? Tianyang had no choice but to summon the vast expanse Holy Spirit. The vast expanse Holy Spirit glanced at Jiang Hao and did not bother to say anything. On the other hand, Jiang Hao was so excited when he saw the vast expanse Holy Spirit that he started talking incoherently. This is, you're really the descendant of that supreme elder. Otherwise, how could you have the weapon spirit of the temple that he stole? What the hell? Tianyang's mouth twitched again. How could it be so coincidental? Then he thought of something and waved his hand, and the white-haired, red-eyed, demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit was summoned. Look carefully. The vast expanse Holy Spirit that supreme elder took away from Haoman is this guy. You rascal, you don't care what I'm doing, you just call me out. The demonized, vast expanse, Holy Spirit, did not listen to Tianyang at all. He looked at his surroundings in confusion, and after a while, he started to rage at Tianyang. This guy has Haoman's aura. You found Haoman so quickly? The demonized, vast expanse, Holy Spirit, looked at Jiang Hao in confusion and surprise. Jiang Hao, on the other hand, was completely confused by the sudden appearance of the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit. According to the records of the sect, the weapon spirit of the temple that was taken away by the supreme elder with demonic chi was indeed white-haired and red-eyed, and looked like a little girl. It was exactly the same as the demonized, vast expanse Holy Spirit that was looking for trouble with Tianyang, but could not reach Tianyang no matter how hard he tried. On the other hand, the first weapon spirit of the temple that Tianyang summoned looked very different from the weapon spirit of the temple in the records. Wait, weapon spirits of the temple, why are there two of them? Jiang Hao was completely confused, his eyes darting between the two vast expanse Holy Spirits. Oh, your temple exploded. After talking to this Haoman for a while, Tianyang finally had the chance to talk to this Haoman. According to the memories that the vast expanse Holy Spirit had recovered, although most of the broken pieces of the vast temple flew to the myriad worlds, most of them were eroded by the myriad worlds because of their small size. Only 4 or 5 of them were left. Currently, the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit had already devoured 2 Heaven's Expanse Saint Palaces. Including himself, there were only 2 Heaven's Expanse Saint Palaces left. When the last 2 were devoured, the Heaven's Expanse Saint Palaces would transform from a saint artifact into an emperor artifact that was even more powerful than a peak divine artifact. How could Tianyang let go of the biggest clue that was Haoman? So you're saying that not only did the Heaven's Expanse Emperor disappear, but his divine artifacts are also broken into pieces. You found 3 of them and devoured one of the Divine Palace's artifact spirits. So, of the remaining 2, one was taken away by the Grand Elder of Haoman, and the other is yours? Jiang Hao listened to Tianyang's explanation and finally understood what Tianyang was saying. Even so, he still could not accept it. No one knew if the vast expanse Emperor was dead or alive. This was indeed recorded in Haoman's records. However, how did the vast expanse Emperor's divine weapon explode? So, why are you looking for me? Jiang Hao was dumbfounded. The second prince and Yang Qingwan were even more dumbfounded. One of the only 2 people who was not confused, Ling Yuhan, could not stand it anymore. She directly kicked the two of them out, looking for the vast expanse emperor to revive the ancient Howman. Tianyang made up a reason on the spot, and then said in an extremely serious tone, "Because I've inherited the vast expanse temple left behind by the vast expanse emperor, I have an obligation to boom." A loud sound suddenly rang out just as the two of them were talking. Following this, a series of powerful energy ripples burst out from the ground. In the blink of an eye, it swept through the entire Qingyuan city. Someone is attacking the city.